Am I the asshole for torpedoing a dude's entire career because he was a bully at work? Original post. So to preface, I know I'm something of a Nepo baby, but it is what it is. My mom is incredibly successful in a very niche but very lucrative field of business. This allowed my dad to be a SAHD and for me and my siblings to get a good education. When I graduated from college, I decided to go into the same field as my mom. While I love her and our relationship is good, I very much did not want to only be viewed as her kid, or receive special treatment due to how well regarded she is, so I use my dad's surname, and generally keep who my mom is to myself. I also avoided coming to work for her. In my field and country, it's generally accepted that people are hired for a trial period, at the end of which either the employee or employer can cut ties with no fines or compensation required. So anyway, I went to work at one company. Again, I'll remind you, very niche market, very few employment opportunities. I went in for my trial period and everyone seemed pretty happy with me. I put out some fires and one superior describes me as a workhorse, because I'm first to the office, last out the door. It goes pretty well. Except for one colleague in my team. This dude is a huge jerk. I'm a bit of a people pleaser and try to be on good terms with everyone, but jerk will have none of it. Dude is incredibly rude. He keeps being very confrontational. Like if a colleague, not just me, was getting any sort of acknowledgement, jerk would belittle them and their accomplishment. If someone was saying they had a rough time with something, jerk would pop up going, "Oh yeah, I did that a while back, it was super easy." Whenever someone tried talking about future plans with me, jerk would go, "Oh yeah, we'll see about that." He also apparently says some very unkind things about my appearance and masculinity, but those at least he had the decency to say behind my back, I suppose, and I only learned about them later. Like dude was incredibly mean, for apparently no reason except trying to make himself look better by making everyone else look worse. This one thing wasn't true to me specifically because I'm male, but his meanness seemed to apply especially to women. A few comments were about how working in this field isn't for moms and they should be raising kids or whatever, and some other very bad stuff. But management seemed pretty content keeping him around because apparently he was a pretty good worker and they liked that he was ambitious. Fine. My trial period ends. I am offered a permanent position, but decide this is not the place for me, as I don't love being anybody's workhorse, and have very little interest in sticking around in jerk's vicinity. I respectfully inform them I will not be sticking around and go find work elsewhere. On my last day I come to say goodbye. Management says they're sorry to see me go. Colleagues wish me well and say they're gonna miss me. Jerk goes, "Ha, told you OP wasn't gonna stick around. Good riddance. Maybe this field isn't for you either." Very loudly. I leave. I'm not very confrontational and I don't have to deal with him anymore anyway, so I just go. Some time goes by and I'm now employed elsewhere. I'm happy and doing well. I love my work and my colleagues. I've been promoted, and I don't really think about jerk anymore, except, apparently there's a relative influx of applicants from jerk's company. Relative because again, very niche market. Whatever. My boss knows I did a trial period over there, so whenever an applicant comes up, he asks me about my experience with them. There are very few people I dislike, so when asked, I usually give my honest opinion, which is usually very positive. But guess whose application we suddenly receive? It's jerk. My boss asks for my opinion, and I say, "Look, I have personal feelings about this person, and I can't be objective." Boss, knowing just how positive I usually am about basically everyone, asks me what's up, and eventually I tell him. I tell him everything. Jerk, obviously, doesn't get hired. I assume that's the end of that. Few days later we had a family dinner. My mom goes, "Wait, you had a trial period at that company, right? Do you know jerk?" Well, my mom knew there was a person I really didn't get along with at that company and the shitty things they did. I tell her it was him. Obviously, she ain't gonna hire him either, especially given his views on women. So my company ends up hiring one of jerk's company's former workers. Me and her are on great terms and this is how I discovered what happened there. Jerk got promoted and that made a bunch of people want to leave. This caused management to look into why strong applicants were leaving after their trial period was over. Turned out it was jerk. Someone had a talk with him and from what I gather he was not receptive to criticism. He was let go. This is when he applied to the company I work for and to my mom's. From what I understand he no longer works in our field. There are, as I mentioned, not many employers around, but unfortunately I have no idea what he does. Will update if I find out. Update. So it's been a minute since my original post. Things kinda blew up and that caused me to want to give a small update and clear some stuff up. So first, let me stress that my field is very niche, with few employment opportunities. It is also, as some of you suggested, niche. Okay, seriously now. As some of you actually guessed, the field is medicine in a small county. This means that there aren't many spots on the residency program, but also a pretty constant influx of students and interns. The field is pretty lucrative. Shitty hours, yes, but great money and a lot of prestige. Some asked about an exit interview at the end of the trial. Had one of those. Said I didn't really vibe with the culture and certain aspects of the way they did things. Didn't name jerk. As a young, relatively speaking, specialist in my field in a not very large department, I get to weigh in on potential colleagues, so if I say someone sucks, that bears some weight. And if a department starts having issues attracting the best candidates because its chief resident is a jerk, that's gonna be an issue. So with that out of the way, let's get to the update. A lot of you were very curious as to what had actually happened to him. So I reached out to some friends. He's still a doctor, obviously, but he just went into another specialty, which given how long he worked to become chief resident is telling. He's probably okay. The reason for the update. It turns out I know his wife. I like his wife. She was a year ahead of me in med school. Got curious so I texted her. Turns out she's not actually his wife anymore, she's his ex. They got divorced. Had coffee with her, still a lovely woman. She's not on Reddit but apparently this thing got on out at some point and reached her. Well, I told her about this and she couldn't believe it was me. Except she could, because she suspected it was me because I apparently sound like a twat when I express myself in writing, which she remembers from my days at the student council equivalent and my many emails. So? Okay. Still, I had a good time. We're getting coffee again on Sunday. Anyway, I didn't have anything to do with his firing, but after he was let go, presumably quite unamicably, he decided to move abroad after failing to get into another department here. This didn't come to fruition but it did cause a rift in their marriage, which then led to divorce. So, maybe I kinda torpedoed his marriage too. And yeah, that's about it for the update. We'll let you know if I get beaten up in a parking lot though, as some of you suggested I might. Parents pressured me to forgive my brother for his affair with my ex-wife and her pregnancy. Then demanded I support them financially. My wife, Amy, 26F, cheated on me with my brother, Jake, 26M, which is why I, 34M, recently got divorced. My family did choose them over me, and yes, that did happen. But karma had other ideas. To help you see how my entire life culminated in this awful betrayal, let me begin from the beginning. Jake, who was born when I was 8 years old, was always the golden child while I was growing up in suburban Boston. In the eyes of our parents, Robert, 58M, and Sarah, 56F, I seemed to vanish. Although they weren't particularly nasty, I was undoubtedly treated as an afterthought. This reality was pounded home to us during our entire upbringing. I can still clearly recall winning my first science fair in 6th grade. I devoted months to creating a functional model of solar system dynamics, replete with orbital calculations and revolving planets. I received first prize and a special commendation for mathematical precision from the judges. Jake had a t-ball practice. Not even a game, just practice. So my parents didn't attend the ceremony at all. The walls of our living room were covered with Jake's participation ribbons, while my award remained unopened on the mantle for a week before vanishing into the basement. Our entire childhood was shaped by that. Jake's C+ grades were celebrated, but my straight A's were met with distracted nods. My mother first expressed concern that Jake could feel bad about his regular classes as a result of my enrollment in the advanced placement program. Jake received a new automobile for his 16th birthday to help build his confidence, according to Dad, whereas I had to start working part-time at 16 in order to earn money for college and buy my own clothes. Graduating from high school was very difficult. Instead of seeing me get my graduation and give my valedictorian address, my parents spent most of the ceremony photographing Jake playing in the stands when he was just 10 years old. Jake was whining about being bored, so they didn't hear me announce my MIT scholarship. A celebration dinner for Jake's early baseball season was transformed into a party. Because Jake seems a little down about all your achievements, Mom even encouraged me to tone down my presentation of my college intentions. I scarcely noticed that I had been accepted to MIT on a partial scholarship because Jake had recently made the junior baseball team. That's nice, honey, but did you hear Jake might make a starting pitcher next season? Mom said, I recall. I came to the realization that nothing I ever did would be sufficient at that point. I served as the practice child, the test subject for Jake, their actual parenting endeavor. With my scholarship, the money I saved from 3 part-time jobs, and the resolve to never look back, I set out for MIT at the age of 18. Jake had a summer league game the day I moved into my dorm, so my parents left early. They didn't even assist me with unpacking. Those were life-changing college years. I was evaluated entirely on my own merits for the first time. Upon discovering my aptitude for software architecture, I immersed myself in computer science and finished with honors. Several IT organizations were interested in my distributed systems optimization undergraduate thesis, and by the time I graduated I had received 5 job offers. A part of me still hoped that things may improve, so I picked a promising company in Boston. In part because it was near home. I was in charge of my own development team within 2 years, and by the 5th year, I was the youngest senior developer in the company's history. My folks were too busy assisting Jake with his 3rd college major change to really understand what I did for a job. 4 years ago at a tiny coffee shop close to my workplace, the real turning point in my life occurred. Amy and I met there. While completing her teaching degree, she was working as a barista. She somehow managed to recall each regular's order as well as a personal characteristic. She acknowledged that she had been writing encouraging notes on my coffee cups for weeks before she eventually consented to go out with me. I hadn't even noticed because I had been so focused on my task. 6 hours were spent on our first date. We discussed everything, including our families, anxieties, and dreams. She seems to genuinely get my family's problems. When I informed her about my early years, she responded, "They're blind. They have no idea what they were missing." I felt like I was being seen for the first time. The following year seemed unreal. We prepared extravagant meals together, spent weekends discovering Boston's hidden bookstores, and went trekking in New Hampshire. She pushed me to go for a big promotion at work, helped me get ready for the interviews, and celebrated my success more than anybody else. She shed joyful tears when I asked her to marry me after 14 months, saying she had been hoping I would. At the time, I believed our wedding was tiny and ideal. When my family arrived, they talked about Jake's new job opportunity in California for the whole of the reception. In order to show everyone a text message from Jake regarding his second interview, Mom actually cut short Amy's father's toast. In hindsight, I should have recognized it as a warning flag, but Amy dismissed it with a laugh, stating that she thought their commitment to Jake was sweet. Our marriage was everything I could have imagined for 3 years. We began discussing starting a family, acquired a lovely condo in Cambridge, and took trips when we could. Amy made our house feel like the cozy, caring home I never had as a child by decorating it with pictures of our travels and planting a little container garden on our balcony. We were a team, she constantly asserted. She would remark, "Us against the world." Then Jake got in touch last year. After failing to succeed in California due to the startup culture not being his vibe, he returned to Boston. He wrote me a lengthy email in which he expressed his longing for his older brother and his desire to mend our relationship after growing up. He wrote, "Families should stick together." After a week of contemplation, Amy urged me to give him a chance. "People evolve," she stated. "Perhaps they've come to terms with their losses." I decided to go out to supper with Jake against my better judgment. Although awkward, the first meeting showed promise. Jake seems to have grown up and become more self-aware. He stated he wanted to make atonement and acknowledged that he had had it easy as a child. A week later, I introduced him to Amy, and they clicked right away. Too well, as I would learn later. Everything appeared to be ideal at first. A couple of times a week, Jake would stop by for dinner. He seemed genuinely interested in my work, brought wine and entertained us with tales of his exploits in California. He even stood up for me when our parents began showing their customary partiality at Sunday dinners. In fact, I began to think that we might be biological brothers. Subtly, however, things began to change. Jake started unexpectedly visiting our home, sometimes while I was still at work. While she graded papers, Amy stated they were simply hanging out and that it was good to have company. He would remain for supper and use my coffee mug while chatting with my wife and making inside jokes. I chose to overlook the warning signs, which included their sudden silence when I walked into a room, Amy's phone abruptly turning to the side when I sat next to her, their knowing glances at dinner, and their coincidental meetings at the coffee shop or grocery store. The announcement of the pregnancy followed. We were eating dinner at home. Naturally, Jake was present when Amy broke the news. Although I was ecstatic, Jake's response ought to have told me everything. He was not in the least bit surprised. Rather, he smiled with a knowing satisfaction that made my stomach flip. Jake was there all the time after that. He would talk about how active he would be in our child's life, touch Amy's stomach without asking, and make remarks about the baby's future. Despite my efforts to organize a romantic baby moon trip, hubby inadvertently invited himself. He said, "The baby needs both of us," and Amy concurred. I still remember the night I found out. I had been lying awake, mentally reliving months of dubious events. Amy was on the nightstand charging her phone while she slept peacefully next to me. I had never once looked at her phone in our 6 years together. I was a believer in trust and privacy. But I had a need to know something. They had hundreds of communications dating back 6 months. While I was at work, we had secret meetings in hotels. Plans for their future together. Conversations about their infant. Soon after he returned to my life, they had begun sharing a bed. They had intended to tell me after the baby was born, assuming that I would be too attached to the child to leave, therefore the pregnancy wasn't an accident. I felt my world come crashing down, message by message, as I read every single message till dawn. I was seated in our reading chair with Amy's phone in my hand when she woke up. She was immediately aware of what I had found. She sobbed. "We didn't intend for this to occur. Jake and I simply clicked. He knows me better than you ever could." In fact, she spoke the most overused phrase in the history of affairs. "We were going to tell you, but we didn't want to worry you after I became pregnant." I called my parents that morning in the hopes that they would finally support me. I was astounded by their answer. Mom said, "Jake made a mistake, but he's going to be a father now. You must forgive him and act like the bigger person. Consider the infant. Consider the grandchild that was produced when their younger son was having an affair with the wife of their older son. They were also protecting him. Once more. There are some things that never change." That day, I called a divorce attorney and checked into a hotel. Amy took turns pleading for my pardon and condemning me for deserting our family. At work, Jake attempted to corner me by claiming that we needed to have a man-to-man conversation. I reported him for workplace harassment and had security escort him out. Going through a divorce was a nightmare. Amy and Jake claimed their affair started because of my emotional unavailability, portraying me as domineering and emotionally abusive. According to my parents' testimony, I had always been difficult, and had lifelong jealousy of Jake. Mom even blamed the mediator for the entire problem, saying that I should have been more considerate of Jake's demands. After that, I stopped negotiating. After we went to court, Amy managed to get a respectable settlement. It seems that in Massachusetts, having an affair with your husband's brother does not waive alimony. Small successes though, like preserving the condo and the majority of my pay. I am currently 34 years old, divorced and totally estranged from my family. I've changed my email, blacklisted their numbers, and told building security to never let them in. On certain days I find myself questioning whether there is any way I could have avoided this. If I'd been a better spouse, brother or son. However, I later realized that I wasn't the one who deceived everyone. Turning family against family was not something I did. It's said that everyone eventually experiences karma. I'm not sure if that's accurate, but I do know that I'm sick of being the family's scapegoat. Having to be understanding when everyone else gets away with ruining lives is something I'm tired of. I've lived my entire life as the one who is passed over, the second best option, and the afterthought. No more. However, just when I believed that things couldn't get much worse, they were about to get even more bizarre. Update 1. I assumed my family would finally leave me alone when I stopped communicating with them after the divorce. About a month has passed since everything happened, and I've been making an effort to concentrate on getting better and moving on. However, it seems that they had different ideas. When our office receptionist messaged me yesterday morning while I was in the middle of an important meeting with my development team, she said that my mother, Sarah, was in the lobby and insisted on seeing me. She reportedly spent more than an hour there, telling everyone she just needed to talk to her son. Since my team had seen Jake's prior incident at work, they could tell how uneasy I was. After ignoring her and carrying on with my job, my phone began to ring with calls from unidentified numbers. It seems that my mother had enlisted a number of family members to attempt to contact me. I thought it might be work-related when I finally answered one phone, but it was my Aunt Linda, 54F, with whom I hadn't spoken in years. Not even bothering to say hello, she began, "Your brother and Amy are really struggling. Jake still hasn't found a job, and the settlement money is running low. Well, no one wants to hire him after that. Jake's reputation appears to have been ruined by his affair with Amy, which somehow made its way into his professional network. After doing background checks, a number of prospective employers withdrew their offers. I couldn't help but notice the irony. For once, his actions had tangible repercussions. This is where it becomes ridiculous though. In addition to purchasing groceries and paying their rent, my parents have also been paying for Amy's prenatal medical expenses. My father's retirement funds are being depleted and they are now in a panic as they run out of money themselves. Their remedy? They want me to provide financial assistance for the woman who deceived me and the brother who ruined my marriage. My mother didn't just show up at my office, she had a plan. She chose to ambush me at work since she knew I wouldn't return their calls. After threatening to stay until closing time, She launched into a prepared speech on forgiveness and family responsibilities when I eventually made my way down to the lobby to handle the problem. She easily forgot that I had to pay for my own college education when she remarked, "Your father and I have always provided for both our sons. It's time for you to take charge and support your brother during this difficult time." What I was hearing was unbelievable. A rough patch. My wife became pregnant after he had an affair with her, and he attempted to claim the child as his own. That is a purposeful set of decisions, not a tough stretch. She foolishly responded, "Well, if you had paid more attention to Amy's needs." Before I phoned security, I interrupted her and urged her to go. I loudly announced in the lobby that I was leaving my own brother and his unborn child behind before she left. Despite their support, a number of my co-workers found this to be humiliating. Jake sent me an email later that evening. In order to get around my blocks, he had made a new account. Half-hearted apologies and barely disguised requests for financial assistance were mixed together in the email. He wrote about the difficulties Amy was having with her pregnancy, something I was unaware of, how they were unable to pay for appropriate medical treatment, and how the stress was impacting my future nephew or niece. The attachment, a sonogram image, was what truly drew my attention, even though the manipulation techniques were clear. They were attacking me emotionally with their unborn child, the result of their affair. In an attempt to take a new tack, my father arrived at my apartment complex the following day and pretended to be there only to talk. I declined to let him in when the front desk called. Then for 2 hours, he stood in the lobby telling everyone who would listen how his successful son was causing his brother's family to suffer. Since then, I've had to inform the management of my building of the circumstances and ask them to bar any of my family members from entering. I don't see any other choice, even though it's awkward to publicly discuss my private issues in this way. Additionally, the harassment has spread to social media. On Facebook, Amy has been making vague accusations against me, claiming that she was abandoned throughout her pregnancy by her emotionally unavailable husband. Adding his own remarks about how some people need to step up and take responsibility, Jake has been reposting these posts. He seems to be unaware of the irony of discussing responsibility while pleading for freebies. I find it infuriating how they have twisted this story. They portray me as the bad guy since I didn't provide for the folks who deceived me. They seem to believe that I have a duty to save them from their own mess, simply because I'm succeeding professionally. I've started keeping a record of everything, including emails, problems at work, and posts on social media. According to my lawyer, if they try anything legal, we could need it. She is especially worried that they would attempt to use the legal system to obtain more support. The worst thing? I've received messages from certain family friends and distant relatives encouraging me to put family first and be the bigger person. They don't seem to realize that Jake and Amy ruined my last remnant of a family. Even though I'm steadfast in my resolve to not assist them, the persistent harassment is wearing me down. To cope with all of this, I've been seeing a therapist, and I'm thinking of searching for a new job in a different place. Although I don't like the idea of fleeing, I'm at a loss on what to do to find serenity. My own family has descended to a level I never imagined, but here we are. They are not merely pleading for assistance, they are attempting to intimidate and coerce me into giving money to the same individuals who ruined my life. I get a feeling that this isn't over yet. Desperate people do desperate things, and they're growing desperate. Update 2. Suddenly, my former partner's attorney sent me a notice. Jake and Amy were trying to sue me for further support, citing increased medical needs and changed circumstances. My lawyer, who had been recording all of their harassment incidents, was enraged but ready. Last week was the scheduled court date. It was unreal to enter that courtroom. Amy was dressed to highlight her obvious pregnancy. Our parents sat directly behind them, looking smugly arrogant, while Jake sat behind her in our father's old suit. First up was their lawyer, who told a story that almost made me chuckle. They claimed that because they had undervalued the emotional toll of the divorce, the initial payment was insufficient. They said that my pattern of workplace harassment had prevented Jake from finding a job and even implied that the stress caused by my vindictive behavior was putting Amy's pregnancy in jeopardy because it allegedly required specialized care because of high-risk issues. The way my lawyer responded was heartbreaking. She started by playing surveillance tape from my office building, which included my mother's theatrical displays, Jake's violent conduct, and Amy's attempts to enter through the rear door. She then presented social media evidence, including a detailed chronology of their campaign of online abuse. Their financial records were the true surprise. Jake had rejected multiple jobs as being beneath him, not because he was having trouble finding employment as a result of my pestering. For the court's pity, Amy had turned down a full-time teaching job in order to keep her jobless, pregnant woman status. Amy's prenatal records, which revealed a perfectly healthy pregnancy with typical expenses, were the most incriminating of all. They had been playing pawn with their unborn child. The judge was clearly upset. The judge interrupted their attorney when he attempted to explain that emotional discomfort warranted more help. Your clients seem to have committed perjury, counselor. Do you want to keep going in this direction? Their lawyer returned with a somber expression after a short break. Jake was pale, Amy was crying, and their united front had fallen apart. I was pleasantly surprised by the judge's decision. In addition to rejecting their motion, he also lowered my alimony payments by 60%. Parties who misuse the legal system are not viewed favorably by this court, he said. Mr. Smith seems to be the victim of a well-planned scheme to exploit him financially and emotionally. The fallout happened quickly. Amy decided she could work after Jake unexpectedly landed a job in retail. In their final message, my parents accused me of destroying Jake's last chance and assured me that they would never forgive me for abandoning my family. Citing irreconcilable differences regarding truthfulness, their attorney resigned from their representation. My organization increased security and barred them from the property. I learned that my parents had taken out a second mortgage to pay for legal bills, and that Jake and Amy were arguing over money all the time via common acquaintances. Finally, I feel like I can breathe. I can rebuild my savings thanks to the lower expenses, and I'm thinking about accepting a job offer in Seattle. Letting someone suffer the repercussions of their actions is sometimes the finest form of retaliation. However, I have a feeling that this story is far from over. Update 3. I want to start by thanking this community. I have remained strong during this entire fiasco thanks to your support and remarks. Here is what may be my story's last update. Aunt Linda, the sister of my father, unexpectedly contacted me a few weeks after the court triumph. I was interested enough to listen to her because she has never been involved in family conflict. A huge error. Trying to seem worried, she began, "Your father isn't getting any younger. His health is suffering as a result of all this stress." She continued by talking about how my parents would lose their retirement funds, how they had to refinance their home to pay for Jake and Amy's expenditures, and how families should stick together no matter what. She changed strategies when I didn't react with pity right away. Did you realize that every night your mother sobs herself to sleep? Even though they may have acted inappropriately against you as a child, they are still your parents. Jake remains your brother despite everything that has transpired. At last, I cut her off. What took place? Are you referring to the months he spent having sex with my wife, getting her pregnant and then attempting to claim the child as his own? That's what took place? I was astounded by her response. Well, perhaps you could have been more involved in your marriage. In fact, she attempted to place the blame for their affair on me, claiming that my jealousy of Jake as a child had produced a toxic environment that pushed them together. It was so ridiculous I laughed, really laughed. Another member of the family was attempting to deceive me into taking accountability for Jake and Amy's behavior. What's different this time? It didn't move me at all. Linda, I asked, why don't you assist them if you're so worried about their financial status? Your husband's legal practice is doing well, and you possess 3 rental properties. Why am I the only one who is supposed to stand by them? That was different, she sputtered, adding that I had a special obligation as Jake's brother. She said she didn't want to take sides when I asked her why she hadn't stepped in during all of this. But now you're picking sides, I said. You decided to come to me and demand that I pay for their consequences rather than admit the harm they caused. She then revealed what she believed to be her secret weapon. Your father is thinking of retiring early because of stress. The house may need to be sold. Is seeing your folks lose everything because you're too proud to assist what you want? I said, no, Linda. They're losing everything as a result of their decision to condone Jake's actions once more. They, like Jake and Amy, are paying the price for their own decisions. And what do you know? I'm not responsible for fixing that. When I'm older and alone. Family is all we have in the end, she emphasized, threatening that I will regret this. No, I replied. Self-respect is all we have in the end, and I'm finally choosing to keep mine. In addition to blocking her number, I hung up. Her call, however, had the unanticipated benefit of providing me with clarity. I felt truly free for the first time from the obligation and guilt that had plagued me since I was a young child. I accepted the Seattle job offer later that day. The change of location feels appropriate, and the firm is providing a substantial promotion. I'm starting over and selling the condo. Yesterday, my coworkers threw me a farewell party. I learned what true support looks like from these individuals, who supported me during the darkest months of my life. With the straightforward statement, your worth isn't determined by those who couldn't see it, my closest colleague gave me a card that was signed by everyone. I've discovered that family is about mutual support, respect and trust rather than blood. The friends who supported me, the co-workers who shielded me, and ultimately, myself, proved to be my true family. I'm done. To my parents, Jake, Amy, and now Linda. Your decisions brought you to this point, and you are responsible for the results. I'm not available to be your ATM or your scapegoat anymore. For my part, I'm excited for my new life in Seattle. I'm thrilled about the initiatives that await me at my company's renowned West Coast location. More significantly, I can't wait to create a life in which I'm respected for who I am rather than compared to someone else's golden child. Writing my last post from an empty condo, surrounded by stacked boxes, seems oddly appropriate. I start driving west tomorrow. I'll be looking back on my past life, with all of its suffering and familial strife. Yes, their baby was born last week, in case you were wondering. No, I haven't contacted anyone or seen any pictures. I've closed that chapter of my life. Again, I want to thank Reddit for supporting me over this trip. When I was having self-doubt, your encouragement and counsel kept me going. Anyone going through a similar situation should know that their value transcends their family's treatment of them. Walking away is sometimes the most self-loving thing you can do. It's time to go. Cheers to fresh starts. After my abusive husband's death, I'm forced to pretend he was a great man. Despite his mistreatment and affairs, I'm now free. My husband passed away 3 months ago. I was relieved of that. He abused me financially, mentally, and even physically. When I got pregnant, he convinced me to quit my job, saying that he would take care of me. I could never buy anything again without asking his permission. I couldn't even buy a cream without asking his permission, and he decided if I could or not. Even months ago that I had a little money of my own, I had to ask him for permission to buy something. What was mine was theirs and theirs was theirs. But I stayed there because I still loved him and I didn't have a place to go. I had too low self-esteem and let myself be stepped on. When I stopped loving him, he had already had his first affair. He made me believe that I was to blame for the affair because I didn't want to have sex months after my birth. That left me torn and I had to receive stitches. I was already planning my exit and saving money little by little while I was working selling things from home, since he wouldn't let me work outside because he was very jealous. I wanted to pay for a lawyer. He was having another affair with a friend of his, which luckily kept him busier, and I didn't care anymore that he didn't pay attention to me. I wanted him to stay as far away as possible. I knew that man and he knew me. I could have made a big fuss, but I didn't. I kept quiet, planning my way out while he and that man slept together in secret. I only felt disgusted by my husband, nothing more. But my husband died in a way I never would have expected. He is now a martyr. When someone dies, all the sins of that person disappear? Because that's what even my family thinks. Those who knew about his affair and how he manipulated me are now talking about how good a man he was, and we shouldn't insult someone who's dead. Everyone around me talks about how beautiful our relationship was. His family talks about what a great man he was and how he always focused on giving everything to me and our kid. His affair partner hugged me at the funeral, saying that my husband loved me. His friends told me what a great person he was. Everyone talks about how good but he was and how he is now an angel in heaven. And I have to pretend to be sad. The day he died, I cried a lot, but not out of sadness. I cried with relief and I felt free. It would have taken me too many years to save to pay for lawyers with my little store without him realizing that I was keeping money in secret. He would have kept everything. He would have made my life a hell, and I know it because he had told me so every time I stood for myself. But now I have the house, I have everything. I have the monthly money for being a widow. I have my children totally with me. I have started to become a psychologist. Everyone thinks that I do it to cope with my grief, but no, it is to overcome the abuse I suffered from him. It was really hard to pretend to be sad at the funeral, but I did it for my child. I did it because now everything is over and I'm free. If I made a fuss, my ex-mill would have done something so that I wouldn't keep anything. They were just like him. But now I'm just a sad widow who needs help in their eyes. The silly widow who didn't know anything, but that's helping me to be free and have what I deserve. Sorry for the bad English, I use the translator for many parts. Edit. We are not from an Islamic country, and here same-sex couples can live and marry freely. He just cheated on me with a man like he cheated on me with a woman. I guess he was bisexual. Am I the asshole for getting upset and crying when my boyfriend let his best friend's wife alter the dish I prepared for dinner? Original post, throwaway account. My boyfriend, 28M, and I, 22F, met at work 2 years ago. Technically I was working part-time during undergrad and he was a customer, but after a couple of months, we started going out. I really love this man and nothing has happened on this scale before, so I'm very confused about it. My BF has a very tight group of friends. I am well acquainted with them, and their girlfriends. One of them, Dave, is married to Ellie. Fake names. Ellie is an excellent cook and often hosts dinners, and everyone brings a dessert to those dinners. I am the youngest in the group, so most times they brush off my requests for contributing or bringing in a dessert. However, the last time I asked Dave and Ellie if they wanted anything extra like wine or some sweet dish for dinner, they said I could bring one of those sweet dishes I make for my boyfriend. I'm Indian. And even though I can't cook as well as my mom, and I'm in a different country for studies, I called my mom up and had her teach me properly how to make a specific Bengali sweet which is my favorite. I had my friends taste it and they said it was great. My boyfriend ate some and said it was excellent. Except, last night, I greeted Ellie and kept the dish in the kitchen. When the food was brought out and my boyfriend told everyone I made it, I saw that someone had added cinnamon powder to the sweet. You never have the sweet with cinnamon powder. The dessert tasted like cinnamon and I felt horrible. Though everyone said thank you and it was good, I think my face gave it away, and my boyfriend took me aside and said that Ellie had told him that my sweet looked too white, and thought some cinnamon might bring some color into it. I don't know, I just felt awful and I started to tear up. My boyfriend then defended Ellie and said that his friends already think I'm a child and not make a big deal of this and we will talk about it. I told him Ellie asked him first, couldn't he have told her not to add cinnamon to the sweet? He told me he didn't think it was a big deal and asked me to drop the topic on the way home. I didn't text him goodnight and this morning he said he was sorry and said my crying made him feel like an awful person. I don't know, now I think I overreacted. AITA, some of OOP's comments. To a now deleted comment, thank you. BDW, it was Rosagola. I even had my mom ask our local sweet shop what quantity they used for the sizes of Rosagola. I had managed the sweet to taste a lot like the sweet shop, so that's why I was so upset. If it tasted bad I wouldn't have cried. Commenter, actually you should have asked right at the table why there is cinnamon added to your dessert. Not in a shout complain way to make a scene but to make it clear your dessert was spoiled and your contribution was pretty much sabotaged. Don't cover other people if.ck-ups, it's on them, not you. OP. Downvoted. I didn't want to embarrass Ellie or my BF. Plus I didn't know who added the cinnamon during dinner, and I was too upset to even talk. Commenter. So your boyfriend doesn't defend you and apparently all his friends think you're a child. Which he also doesn't defend you against. He's also got 6 years on you, dude's nearing 30. Does your boyfriend often treat you like a child? Does your boyfriend usually defend his friends when they do some fuck shit like this? Does your boyfriend defend you at all? He should feel like an awful person. He is an awful boyfriend. I usually just hang around my boyfriend's friends during these dinners. I admit I feel a little left out because they all have been friends for so long, and I'm from a different culture, but they have never said any outright offensive thing to me. My boyfriend doesn't treat me like a child. He mentioned before that due to my age his friends see me like a much younger sister. So I guess that's why he said it. I don't know, I'm kind of rethinking his words. Commenter, you should really your aunt have a round with your BF in Bengal. We don't have GFs or housewives, we have queens of the house. He needs to understand the Bengali household hierarchy. OOP, there is no way am I going to tell this to my ma. She already has reservations about my BF due to the age gap and the fact that he is not Bengali. But thank you, your comment cracked me up. A lighter comment. I know. I was horrified. And I had to eat it and act like nothing happened, at the dinner table, to not cause a scene. Traumatized by cinnamon rosagola was not on my bingo card this year. Top comment, Vegetable Business 897, BF saying everyone thinks you're a child, and him saying, we'll talk about this later, is him telling you he thinks you're a child. Girl, tell him you're tired of hanging out with judgmental old farts and you're going to go find people younger and cooler to be with. Please don't think this guy hung the moon. Mini update, same post. Update, Ellie saw this post. My boyfriend texted me to see if it was me. I said yes. He said we needed to talk. For safety purposes, my best friend will be here. I don't know, I never expected my post to blow up update post. He said he needed space from the relationship. I think with the way this post blew up and what happened because of a post, I should clear up some things. I never asked if I should leave my boyfriend for this. I asked if this was an overreaction. My crying. But having thousands of people tell me this was racially charged, Ellie wanted power, my BF is shitty, etc. My brain went haywire. BF called yesterday and when I got there, his house, with my best friend, Dave and Ellie were there. Ellie was crying and Dave looked really pissed at me. My BF told me to sit down and Dave started with how I could make a post that most of the people in the dinner party would recognize and know, and could shame Ellie and my BF. My BF was silent and wouldn't even look at me, and was only shaking his head. It felt like I was a kid, being scolded by my parents with my elder sibling disappointed in my actions. That is what I felt and it looked. I admit, it was very spineless of me, but Dave went on for like a minute and I was just looking at my BF waiting for him to defend me. I asked Ellie, why would she alter my dish, after telling me to bring an Indian dish? She said she thought Indian food would be brown. This woman has more Indian friends than me, and she thinks Indian food is brown. She grew up in the UK, FFs. And I felt so defeated. The comments, my friends, and people around me telling me his friends came first to him, not me. He said he didn't think the sweet was a big deal. I told him I would never let my friend alter something he spent 3 days learning, getting people to taste it and got his mom involved in. He saw I put a lot of effort into it, so why let her alter it? Why couldn't he ask me? Ellie started to cry and say that she wasn't being racist and she wouldn't know that I put effort into it and now she couldn't host dinners again. I said I used fake names, so why does it matter, unless she and Dave went around telling people? BF told me he didn't expect this from me. My best friend piped up that he expected that my BF would have a effing spine, so I guess they were both disappointed. My, BF told me, in front of Dave and Ellie that he needs some space. I told him to get lost. I don't know what my best friend said to him after that, considering I left my BF's flat. I kind of tripped in the metro station, so now I'm crying on my best friend's couch with an ice pack while his BF keeps giving me peach schnapps and my relationship has toppled over. I wouldn't have stormed out, had he looked at me once. He just looked 100% on Dave and Ellie's side, and acted like I was the one with the problem when she caused me hurt. If his friends come first when they cause me hurt, where would I have been, if I decided to marry this man? My friends are good to me and are acting like I'm some fragile glass. I even heard my best friend and his brother whispering loudly from the kitchen and his elder brother wanting to threaten him via Insta DMs. I hate that this has come to this, considering I have always been the mom friend to my friend group. I'm drunk while writing this, so have some grace in the comments. Also, if you'll be an incel like those people in my DMs, telling me I'll never keep a man if I'm this dramatic, please go away. I just thought I needed to update. That's it. Thanks guys. Edit, guys, this is the first time I've faced what y'all have been calling racism. TBH, I didn't see Ellie putting cinnamon into my rosagola as racism. I was just hurt that my days of hard work were ruined, that's it. I understand I need to work on my self-esteem and not let people walk over me. My best friend's elder brother, he's a doctor and is super pissed at my ex-RN, because he didn't know what happened, booked an appointment with a therapist he knows, as he thinks I need mental help to not normalize aggressive behavior. I'm sorry for ranting on Reddit but I guess that's where I am. Both my best friend and I will be going, he had been there for some time before, and the situation is tense at home because Dada, Bestie's brother, didn't know what was happening and tore my friends a new one for not protesting when Dave said shit to me. I still haven't told him it was over a Reddit post and that I'm writing here. I feel awful and I don't know how to tell my mom she was right. I wish I never went out with him. One of my ex's friends, from the dinner party, asked me if I really left my ex over a dessert, so I guess that's what he told people. It hurts, I know it shouldn't but it hurts. I think it is partially my fault, I shouldn't have let myself be treated like this. There were signs and I ignored them. And now I think I'll never have another relationship because it feels like a horrible, anxious feeling. Some of OOP's comments. Commenter, the older brother, who is a doctor and is taking the time to make sure that your mental health is okay, sounds like he cares more about you than Dave or anyone at the dinner party. OOP, he does, never doubted that. He is also very mad at me for drinking too much and at his brother for hiding the fact that my ex was an asswipe. I actually am grateful to him and my best friend for being a very strong support system. Commenter, completely unrelated thing BTW, brown rosagolas exist in India too. They're not as sweet as the white kind, so I prefer the white ones. 3. OOP, I was thinking of making rosagolas. They are brown and tastier, in my opinion. I think maybe if I had made them, this whole mess wouldn't have happened. Commenter, I'm really curious what this dessert is that takes 3 days to make, drop a link to a recipe. OOP, it does not take 3 days to make. I practiced 3-4 times and because I'm not a professional sweet maker it took me almost 6 hours all 3 days to properly make the kanna, or the correct amount of cardamom to put into the milk for a little cardamom taste. It takes a lot of time and you can find a lot of YouTube videos on rosagolas. Commenter, I say date Dada or the best friend. Dada knows how to treat a woman and he seemed royally pissed at what happened to her. Going as far as to get her therapy. I've had best friends and their family as mine before and I know they've never gone that far to help me. Is it just me or is it a little more than family, To get so angry on her behalf and try to help her mental health. OOP. My best friend is gay and is very much in love with his BF. That's the reason he was in therapy for some time. He has faced homophobia in our home country and needed counseling. And that's why his brother is overprotective of both of us. Where OOP is from for those curious. I'm from West Bengal, but not Kolkata, though I have spent a couple of years of my childhood there. To a different commenter, I am from a district that shares a border with Bangladesh, and both sets of my grandparents were from there. New update post. I'm again grateful for the barrage of supportive messages and chiding I've received from the internet after the cinnamon fiasco and my post causing a breakup. I am updating because I felt like I should just update about recent events, and honestly, after just more than 2 weeks I have started to feel good about myself, even though I feel like shit whenever I remember my ex. I really hope I can put this whole thing to rest and I don't have to update again, for my sanity. Firstly, my ex called a few times last week. I had blocked him earlier, literally like 2 days after breaking up, and whenever he called my friends they wouldn't pick up either. I wanted to handle this matter gracefully. And unlike what some people commented, no, I did not want my issues all over the internet and did not understand what was happening. I just wanted some advice on how to deal with my emotions and didn't want my friends to be mad at my then BF. Thankfully, the trash took itself out. I still don't know if Ellie was racially motivated or if she just hated me. I don't even care now. I don't want a man who makes his friends scold me and humiliate me. I know I deserve to be at least somebody's first choice. Ex came to my best friend's flat. I don't live there, and from what I heard from my bestie's boyfriend, he said he was very sorry and he now felt like I didn't deserve to be treated like that. He had thought, when he broke up with me, that I was overreacting and it was just a small thing I made a big deal out of. But then a few of his friends explained to Ellie that it definitely was a horrible thing to do and told my ex he was a shit BF. Huh. Who knew he had nice friends too? Ex didn't say anything more after that. He was just sorry and he said he doesn't want more hurt between us. I have decided to not contact him. I'm just done. A lecture from my mother on dating idiot men and crying every night for over a week has made me lethargic, and on top, I am fending off Dada, Bestie's elder brothers, insisting that I move in with them for some time because I'm not eating well. My dad said it's okay if I do. My family trusts my bestie and his family a lot. Needless to say, my work and studies are suffering. I haven't heard from Ellie or Dave and I don't intend to. The person who asked me if I left my ex over a desert, I told her what happened and she was appalled. I don't know what she told my ex, for him to apologize. Honestly, I'm so done with that group shit. I went to one therapy session and I didn't feel good. I know I have to keep going for it to actually help me, but I can't help feeling so down. I have never been so emotionally low in my life and I am officially not dating for the foreseeable future. I am planning a trip with friends after my final semester of my master's and I really hope I don't bring the mood down, for my friends who have been so supportive and have always made me feel I have family, even though I'm away from home. I don't know what I would have done without having my best friend and his boyfriend, who keep telling me to drink the pain away, and Dada keeps on talking about the negative effects of becoming an alcoholic. Overall, I'm closing this chapter, and I don't think I'll need to update again. I'm not ever talking again to Dave and Ellie or my ex, so I don't expect any more drama. I just want to settle down to work and graduate properly. OOP clarifies. Oh my god. I have not started drinking, guys. I rarely drink and just cry. The alcohol thing was a joke. Fiancé's graduation party exposes dealbreaker, LGBTQ+ acceptance splits 4-year relationship. We met in college and decided to not get married until we graduated to focus on our studies, and we have been dating for 4 years. He proposed to me during his last semester of his master's program, and he is studying to become a teacher. I graduated with my bachelor's not too long ago, but his graduation party is showing a side of him that I believe to be a dealbreaker. His graduation party will be held at his father's house, which has a pretty big backyard, and many of the people from our wedding will be going. However, unlike our wedding invitation list, he said he didn't want to invite Jason, fake name, and his parents because he recently came out as gay, and that led to a conversation. Jason and his parents were invited to our wedding, so that made me ask why he didn't want them at the graduation. He said that the wedding was an us thing, and that he was willing to compromise because it was our wedding. But when it came to the graduation, he said it was a him thing because he was the one who graduated, so he didn't have to compromise, because he did the school work. When I asked what he meant by compromise, he said he'd tolerate Jason at our wedding because that's what couples do, but the graduation was about him. When I asked if he'd support potential future children that came out, he said he'd tolerate it for me, although he disagreed with it. It is my fault for not asking that question earlier before we became engaged, but he made his stance clear. He said he'd be more distant to a child that turned out to be gay and would probably let me do more of the parenting if so. He's always been a gentleman and amazing to me, but he grew up religious, parents were Christians, although he said he's not anymore. I don't think we have a future after he said he would distance himself from a child who came out and leave it to me, and I just want to ask how to tell him so. I'm thinking about another conversation like we had, but I want to ask for the best way to go about it. What would be the best way to tell him that I don't think we have a future together given his stance? First update. AIReddit recovered June 11, 2023. A lot of people suggested talking to my fiancé in an open space or my parents' home about my deal breaker, but I wasn't able to do it at my parents' home, although I got to talk to them and they agreed with my reasoning. They said they were disturbed by how easily he admitted he would distance himself from a potentially gay child and that it was a good thing it came out before the wedding. I also got a lot of people calling me out for not broaching the topic of gay children or how he felt about LGBTQ in the years we dated, and that's on me for never thinking to bring up. Going forward, it will be something I ask early on before getting emotionally invested in a relationship. Because I couldn't speak to him at my parents' place, we ended up talking at a place we went for lunch, and I told him that I couldn't go forward in the relationship because he repeatedly said he wouldn't accept any children who came out. But when I said that, he didn't try to take it back and said that he was willing to compromise for me. He said it was better than pretending, to agree with coming out and that he was being honest, but I told him I was done because of his beliefs, and he didn't take it well. He took it fine at the restaurant and finished lunch without saying much else, and he kept saying I was overreacting and that he couldn't believe I wanted to end the relationship over him wanting to compromise. My parents have been helping me with canceling the wedding, but he took his spite online. He made a Facebook rant a few days after that, doubled down on a lot of the things he said, and he said he made it to explain his side of things. He said that I was breaking up with him despite him being honest about his willingness to compromise and not hiding it like many couples internalize things. He also said our country was changing things that were always wrong, such as gay rights, and he said that people were trying to shove gay rights down everyone's throats. He also said that you can't say anything these days because of canceled culture and Me Too catering to sensitive people. And he said that the value of education was dropping because people were becoming more stupid. He also said that that was why he wanted to become a teacher, because there weren't enough good ones. And those were just a few of the things in his rant. He also said that Me Too enabled people from the consequences of their behavior, when they should instead look at themselves in the mirror and how they dress too. He never said anything about Me Too during the duration of our relationship or anything that was outspoken about gay rights until his graduation planning, and it was honestly surprising to read what he wrote. As I said above, I will be asking these questions at the start of dating going forward. Lastly, some people suggested reporting my ex-fiancé to the school in my previous post because they said he could be harmful to gay students, and I especially agree after the post he made. I did receive a lot of hateful DMs from people who agreed with my ex and said that I'd be wrong to contact the school. Some even accused me of considering canceling him in DMs and a few comments on my last post, but I don't see it as that. I see calling the school as something that's important because this mindset is harmful to so many, and he is already a substitute teacher at an elementary school. He began subbing before he graduated. I want to ask what would be the best way to go about it. Whether that would be an email, phone call, or potential visit to do it in person. I have already screenshotted the post he made, and I've only answered questions about the breakup from people who have called so far. My parents are helping me with some people who have called them too, but that is my last. Second update, August 20th, 2023. I didn't really plan to make another post, but I received a lot more DMs after my update was shared that made me want to come back, and I read through many of the comments there too, which made me want to address something. To those who called me out for not seeing any signs of his homophobia earlier. You're absolutely right. I just assumed the best and never thought to question it, but I will now ask the tough questions going forward at the beginning of future relationships, such as political stances along with opinions on race and gender, and that should help prevent time from being wasted on people similar to my ex. I just assumed the best because we have another friend who is trans and was always cool with him, and my ex used to like the post that he made when he came out some years back. He also liked a post that he shared at a Pride walk, so there was that too. Going forward, I won't assume anymore because at the end of the day, a like really doesn't mean anything. I sent an email with an attachment of his now deleted Facebook rant to a few places. The school he subs at was subbing at before he graduated, and the school district along with the county office of education where we live, thanks to advice provided by a commenter who I DM'd for more advice. I also told people I knew about why we were breaking up and showed them the post, and that did most of the talking for me. I broke up with my ex before contacting the school, and I decided on a text because we didn't live together and also had my dad return the ring to his parents' home where he gave it to his mom and had minimal interaction. I was too scared/cowardly to do it myself, so I took them on their offer to drop it off for me. In the text, I told him that I couldn't marry him due to his homophobic comments and opinion, along with telling him that my parents would drop off the ring so that it was in writing, and I blocked him after sending. He didn't have any belongings at my place, but he's been livid about the way I handled it, and I'll admit that I was afraid to do it face to face because I was a coward, but he took to Facebook again. He made another post talking about how dad returned the ring instead of me and that I didn't give him credit for being honest about his willingness to compromise, and proceeded to ghost him, pretty much erasing the purpose of his deleted post by referring to the same points. I'll admit that I was cowardly about how I handled it, but what really surprised me was when his dad took to Facebook about it too, and he accused me of canceling him for an opinion he shared, along with saying that communication in marriage is dead. He called me reader_Ed in his post and that people like me were the reason Trump lost, because no one had morals. He also said that Trump needed to win again to stop canceling culture, because his son was punished for his opinion. I want to remind you that my ex was not religious despite his parents being big Christians, but I'm guessing he vented to them about it and is back involved in some way given the post. The last thing I'll say is this, and I kept it to the end because I'm not looking for advice, as I'm only taking it from a lawyer on this matter that my parents have helped me contact. My ex called my job and apparently told them that I had CP and that was why he left, and I don't know where he pulled that out of his ass from. I don't know if he talked about the emails I sent to the district involving his post, but my dad seems to think that it might be retaliation, although he's not sure, because it's only been a few weeks. He thinks it could be retaliation for my letter to the district or for ghosting him, but we're looking into a lawyer, as I was recently made aware of the accusation at my job when I was talked to, and that is where my focus lies. I'm not going to make any future posts because I've still received a lot of hateful DMs telling me that I was wrong to report him to the school, but I stand with my decision to do so. I really appreciate the advice I received and hope that at the least, telling the school will have done some good. Someone also suggested looking into LGBTQ things to support and give energy to, and I'll look into that once I'm past this job situation. Third update, September 9th, 2023. I said that last time was going to be my last post, but I really mean it with this one. Before I get into why though, I just want to say again that I'm sorry for not seeing his homophobia earlier. Many people have cursed at me in DMs asking how 4 years of dating never showed it, and I thought I apologized in my last post, but I kept getting those messages, so I just want to say again that I'm sorry and that going forward, I'll ask for political gender beliefs on the first date to not waste time with potentially hateful people. I'm just tired of being yelled at about it, and there have been some supportive comments too. But the majority of them are either calling me out for not seeing it or for wrongfully canceling him and agreeing with many of the points his father made in his Facebook rant. If the news was on TV as we were doing something, eating, my ex didn't voice his homophobia then as many asked. And when we talked about kids, it was wrong of me to not ask what he'd think if they came out. Lesson learned for next time. As previously mentioned, we also had a friend who came out, and he's very close to them and accepting. But with that out of the way, I'll get to why this is my last post aside from the majority of hateful DMs. My ex's dad hasn't stopped posting about me on Facebook, and it's all pretty much the same as canceling culture rants from last time and calling me a leftist, among other things. I have also received a number of social media DMs spouting similar hate to the DMs I received on Reddit, and I directly blame him and his dad for this. I mentioned last time that I was looking into a lawyer, and my parents have helped me with the search, which has been helpful because of how his dad continued. His dad posted my socials and home address to one of his Facebook posts, thus why I deleted my Instagram, and he said that he was going to cancel me back too. Another reason I contacted a lawyer was because I received a threatening DM, but that's the most I'm going to go into specifics. I only received one of those, but it was enough to make me and my parents want to be on the safer side. And that's another reason why I'm done making these posts, because I want this whole thing to be over soon. I really appreciate the supportive DMs I received in the midst of the hateful ones, and I also appreciate the majority of supportive comments from Boru that were sent to me by someone in a DM too. I really hope the whole thing is over soon because it's been draining, but hopefully the lawyer can at least provide some peace of mind. Fourth update, January 27th, 2024. I'm going to update the bottom of my post, instead of a new one, because of the sensitivity of what's happened the past few months. The past few months have been really tough, and the encouragement I've gotten from reading my story on Boru has helped more than I can express. Everyone there has been really supportive, so much to the point that I reread the comments for reassurance when I feel down sometimes. When I broke up with him and told the school about him, I didn't know the next few months would be so tough, So I need to vent to get it out because things have been stressful. When I mentioned how my ex's father has been posting about me on Facebook in my previous posts, he posted my home address, and a link to my socials, in one of his rants, where he said he'd cancel me back for canceling his son. And that led to me, among other things, looking into a lawyer. However, I also moved back into my parents for a few reasons since my last post. Someone slashed my tires in front of my home at night, and to this day I don't know who. I have no proof that it's connected to him putting my address on Facebook, but I think it could have been. I also made a police report, but they didn't find who did it. I also mentioned in my last post that I was getting threats without going into specifics. But to be honest, some of them were DEA_H threats that gave me lots of anxiety. I'm guessing they could be from some of my ex's friends or his father's, but I also received a lot of messages on my socials, since his Facebook post where he linked my socials, that led to me deleting my socials, many cursing me out and calling me woke among other things. My Reddit posts were also picked up by numerous TikTok accounts that share Reddit stories with a video game playing in the background, and I was recently made aware of 3 of them that seemed to garner some attention, one with 80k views and a couple hundred comments. Another with 20k, and a fair bit of the comments were supportive of my ex. That also directed traffic back to my Reddit post that led to a few more hateful DMs since my last update, along with a fair bit of supportive ones too, so that was another wave of messages to go through. I have no quarrel with the videos themselves because many comments were supportive too, and the channels share other Reddit stories too. The fact that some commented in agreement with my ex doesn't make the video bad either, but was just a realization of homophobia. Some comments made fun of Jason for coming out while others said my ex was right to uninvited him. It's just been a lot, and I came back to get it off my chest. I know I'll get more hateful comments after updating, but I also want to say I don't regret what I did. My ex hid his homophobia. We had friends who came out who he supported, and he came to pride marches with them too. As many commented, the mask came off eventually. In regards to the CP accusations from my ex-father, child pornography for those who were confused in the comments in my previous post where I didn't indicate, my parents helped hire a lawyer, but I won't go into specifics on that. All I'll say is that we're taking it seriously and are taking legal action against it. If anything comes from it, I'll share it in an update. The tire slashing and threats also did a number on my mental health, but it showed me some things too. The DMs also showed me just how ruthless people are, strangers who would never say such things to my face. I'm considering moving out of state, but I'm currently with my parents for safety reasons now. I especially appreciate reading the supportive comments DMs that aren't hateful because they really help, and I'm also with a therapist, but progress hasn't been great yet. There's a lot of mental health stuff I don't feel comfortable going into specifics about. It's been a lot of craziness, but I hope it calms down with time. Final update, made by OOP's parents. August 3, 2024. I have been in contact recently about something my husband and I wanted to share, and we asked if she would post it to Boru after they covered some of our daughter's updates. The person who made the previous updates was our daughter, and she shared the post with us as we tried to navigate her situation. Many of the comments from Boru were very supportive, and that is a big reason why I'm here today. The main reason, however, is because she committed suicide a few weeks ago and the funeral has already happened. We fully supported her decision to leave her ex after he showed colors we hadn't seen before. We were also in the process of receiving legal advice regarding the accusations that were made against her too. But even as we did, she was often overwhelmed and depressed. Even to the point of not wanting to get out of bed sometimes or even eat on certain days. We were able to help her find a therapist, but there was so much going on all at once. From the death threats and DMs to the slashing of tires and her ex's father posting her address alongside one of his online rants, she ended up taking an unpaid leave of absence from her job shortly after the slashing to move in with us. Before that, her job also called her into the office to discuss the allegations made against her from her ex, and the culmination of everything was so overwhelming. Her ex and his father posted so much about her with no regards to doxing her, and we are in the process of pursuing them legally for the role they played in everything. Regarding her ex, he is still a teacher as of writing this. His father hasn't stopped attacking her online even after she passed, and we have documented everything he posted. We also told everyone who knew her how proud we were not only of her decision to break up, but also to ensure that his hatred wasn't spread to others by reporting his post to the district, and we owe thanks to the many Redditors who told her how to report it to the district. There were also some comments and DMs that said she brought backlash upon herself by reporting him, but we believe that she did the right thing and that she was braver than most might have been in her shoes. She could have done nothing and simply broke up with him, and no one would have batted an eye. She wasn't obliged to do anything else. But she felt convicted to care for kids she'd never meet. And if she prevented one kid from falling prey to his hatred, it is that much more worth it. For her sake, we are continuing to pursue her ex and his father legally. But we wanted to thank everyone who told her how to tell the district, because we need more people like her and you, and making this post is therapeutic in itself because we've told others how she did the right thing as well. We truly appreciate everyone who supported her and gave her advice. My brother-in-law peed on my belongings for months. Discovering a horrifying family history of abuse destroyed my marriage. For months, my brother-in-law left me pee on my stuff. Finding out why revealed a terrible family background that shattered my marriage. For 10 years, Ted, 34M, my spouse and I, 29F, had been together. We dated all through and got early in college. I completed before him and spent a semester traveling while he was finishing so we might relocate to another state. He ended up needing to repeat several classes, hence when I returned we couldn't relocate yet. Since I had nowhere of my own, I moved in with Ted and his roommate Ash, 32M, as he was still in school. I made sure Ted approved it with Ash before we moved so my male cat could accompany us. Their dog was elderly, but Ash claimed he was good with it. About 3 weeks after we moved in, I began to notice that our bedroom smelled strongly of urine and we were unable to locate its source. I knew it wasn't my cat since she is toilet trained. The dog couldn't enter our room since it is on the second story and he suffers hip issues. I began to find clothing on the floor smelling like urine. When I asked Ted, he said he knew nothing. I questioned Ash if he was bringing the dog upstairs after 3 months of annoyance and this occurring around twice a week. No, he replied. I had had enough at this time. I stopped leaving garments anywhere, but I was still discovering pee and stuff like throw pillows, shoes and so forth. After breaking down one day, Ash proposed it was my cat claiming his territory, as male cats are notorious for doing. Since it was simply on my belongings and a new location, he felt it made sense. If any of you own cats, you are aware that their pee smells different from human pee. I put up a webcam in our room since I trust my cat completely. My boyfriend knew about my rent payment, therefore I reasoned this was the best method to find out where the pee was coming from. Ash was indeed walking into our room and pissing on my belongings. After seeing the movie, I packed my belongings and my cat and stayed with a friend until Ted graduated and we moved. Ted and I handled that, hence when all of this was happening I avoided facing him. Not really spoken to Ash since then. Though we usually avoid each other at family events, he was the best man at the wedding. Ash lost his job and housing with the epidemic and is quite broke. He wanted to move in with us, but I really don't want to since he left urine on my belongings. When it happened, he was a grown man, 25 years old. Their entire family is now calling and texting, telling me I'm an ass for leaving him homeless in the middle of an epidemic. Still, it wasn't their belongings that were left pee-stained on. Although he is losing his house and his cat deserves a home, I am harboring resentment since he left urine on my belongings. I cannot simply grab his pet and abandon him to the elements, it was made rather abundantly apparent. Although I know I'm justified, Ted claims he couldn't do that to his brother, and the employment situation is better here for his kind of work. First edit number 1. I appreciate all of you spending time to consider my present situation. I had to stop responding for a bit as I'm at work right now, but I'll get back to everyone in the morning. A few of questions have surfaced several times. He is in therapy? After Ted's mother made him go, he was last I checked. That's how we learned the reason he did this. Our best friends were Ash and Ted. Me entering Ted's life threatened enough for him to want to separate us. Clearly, it failed and it only caused Ted to go no contact temporarily. According to his therapist, Ash owed his brother apologies. My mother-in-law, the person who got them back in touch, said Ash asked for pardon for his deeds. I could deal with it as long as I didn't have to be with him and he never set foot in our house. They reunited. Why did he show up for the wedding? The celebration for our parents predominated when we were getting married. Although my parents planned a large wedding as I am the first of my sisters to be married, we were not bothered about the courthouse. We could not exclude Ted since all of his brothers and all of my sisters were bridesmaids and groomsmen. After all, Ted and Ash are best friends. I didn't care as long as I didn't have to snap selfies with him and he didn't deliver a speech. Why cannot any of his family accompany him? While the rest of the family resides on the West Coast, we live on the East Coast. After several comments, I'm beginning to question this next section, but I'll say it nonetheless as that's the facts I know. Ted's career is far more employable on the East Coast than on the West, thus going across would reduce his prospects of getting a new work in his sector. I am working to persuade every brother, there are 8 more, to contribute in a small amount so, between us all, he can stay there. Why would they find me to be an ass? his entire family forgives and lets go quite naturally. Things that are horrible to me, car theft, false college degrees, money theft, have been pardoned by them. They so truly believe that this was only a one-time occurrence and that has outgrown it. I simply need to get over it. Apologized, he asked? I find it somewhat sour that he apologized to Ted but not to me. Though you guys are right, it would be self-serving of him and a means of getting back into my house and maybe causing further problems. I was thinking of accepting an apology. Paid for the items he left behind? I just kept washing the urine-stained items as I had no idea where the pee was coming from. Following the video, I did toss anything I recall having been urinated on, that which had no emotional worth. Still, there are 2 pairs of damaged shoes in my house right now. He did not pay for the items I tossed, and to be honest, I never considered asking him. Should I merely cut my losses? On this, what is your husband's stance? Ted is the greatest human being in the universe. He really tolerates enough of my pranks to let Ash move in if it would make him happy. Ted was agitated and cut off totally as soon as things started. They made up though, as his mother mentioned the therapist thought it would enable him to atone. Ted has never once urged me to be with Ash or for him to visit our house. Ted assured me it was very fine if I turned Ash down as the best man when we got married. Still, I love him enough to handle him when it's called for, such around Christmas and major family gatherings. Are the videos visible to me? Though I regret to let you down, no. Though I'm annoyed as I could be at the man, I do respect privacy. I honestly wouldn't believe me if he told me one of my sisters was peeing on his belongings, hence when it happened I just gave it to Ted so he would believe me. To the best my knowledge, he has only given it to 2 of the elder brothers and his parents to prove we were not fabricating things. Curious as I am, I would want to thank you for your medals. They are beautiful and shiny and make me feel as though I recently came out victorious from the Olympics. You folks are the finest. I also want to thank you for the really great nicknames and jokes. I will be leaving him a litter box and puppy training pads in the guest room just to rub his nose in, should I lose this fight and he relocate here. You people are the best. I swear to reply to messages and comments as soon as I can. Edit number 2. Mini update. P has thus hit the fan in the family, and my day has been terrible. The family lacked the complete picture. Some of the other brothers saw this post and all of your comments. Not apparently did our brothers either. I'm way over my head, hence numbers 3, 4 and 8 are on their way here to handle it. The messages saying me I most likely had it coming, that I wanted it, or that I deserved it deserve a big F you. I wish the P-Man pays you a visit and stains your toothbrush. I appreciate your wonderful comments and worry. I appreciate the reality check references. I appreciate you waking me to my several flaws. Though things suck right now, hopefully in a few days I will be able to provide you guys closure or at least additional responses. Remain hydrated. Update 1, as you all advised, I showed Ted the post. Ted realized he had done wrong by me after reading some comments. Though I was cool with it, it was still improper of him and the entire family to be as they are. When the whole event happened, he sincerely apologized for not asking more from his brother, family, and self. Ash moving in with us was certainly not going to happen, he stated. He also inquired of various professional acquaintances whether Ash could get work as an engineer. One of those contacts turned out to be someone employed by the same company Ash did. He informed Ted Ash hadn't been sacked, he had quit but was welcome to have his job returned. Ted went to face Ash about this. We reside some many hours apart. It brings me joy, not because my husband is lacking in any kind. Ted found some stuff that started a chain of events and truth unveilings that, to be honest, just make me sad more than anything else. While I was at work, I worked 2 jobs, one part-time during the day because I wanted to. Yes, I realize I'm being cowardly once more and should be furious, but right now I'm exhausted and want to sleep. But I believed I owed you guys closure since I had enough pleasant and nasty notes. Though right now I don't care. I'm most likely going to get trash for revealing all of this. This is a resumed but still somewhat long rendition of all that has occurred since my OP. B stands for brother of Ted. If I say wife #X, please refer to the number of the brother, not that any of them have multiple wives. B number 1, doctor with some type of military background, wife, 3 kids. B number 2, surgeon, wife, 2 dogs, and a bearded dragon. B number 3, engineer, fiance, and dog. B number 4, teacher and researcher, wife, 1 kid. B number 5, works in IT, not sure of details, wife. B number 6, doctor, single and ready to mingle. B number 7, chef, businessman, wife, 1 kid. B number 8, car sales, wife, 3 kids, fish. B number 9, Ted, wife and cat. B number 10, Ash. I went down with Ted to discuss all you highlighted. He really apologies, we vowed to do and be better and we sobbed together. His family is difficult, as you're now well know, and not rocking the boat became second nature to him. We both agreed to attend individual therapy. Should both therapists recommend couples therapy, we will also undergo couples therapy. To somewhat brighten me, he ordered a t-shirt bearing the most okayest human in the universe. Ted called his contacts anyhow and discovered Ash hadn't quit. Furious about all the fuss this is generating, he goes to face him. He behaves in his place, Ash is absent. Ted goes in anyhow and waits since he carries an emergency key. Eventually he has to use the guest bathroom, but it is locked. So he enters his room and discovers a situation. This was the word he used to describe it. He told me to remain home, called me, and claimed he would be home later since he had to engage his family and wanted not to subject me to more than he already had, which had me thinking the worst. I was terrified at that moment and implored him to come back soon and be careful. About 2 hours later, wife number 8 calls me sobbing to check on me. I say Ted told me briefly about the circumstances. I haven't heard since. I asked her whether I wanted to know, which I did, and she begins by apologizing and then says they didn't know the complete story. After reading my post, B number 5 called B number 7 to voice disapproval of me distributing the story online. Apparently, he knew it was our family since having your stuff pee on isn't common enough. B number 7 then states there are several things about my account of events that sound off to him. By now they've all read it. He calls B number 2, who calls their mother. I did miss calls from B number 6 and B number 2 as I was working. Still, as many of you suspected, Ash's tale had a flimsy therapist component. It turns out that the therapist he had been visiting was a buddy of his with zero genuine expertise and merely claimed to be his therapist so his mother would be off his back about it. For approximately 3 years, he pretended to be attending therapy, which his mother paid for. When my MIL discovered it, she kept it under wraps and claimed to have forgiven other brothers for worse. All of this came to light when B number 2 questioned her about Ash's refusal to apologize to me. They were under the mistaken notion that he had apologized and I had forgiven him, because I have a history of being a doormat, and he was best man, which is why they were pressuring him to live with us. They also had no idea the territorial dispute had been ongoing for months. They were aware of a few incidents, but not as many as there were. Back to wife number 8. She informs me that B numbers 3, 4 and 8 are on their way because Ted requested assistance, which frightened me out. She tells me to talk to wife number 1 because she needs some help. I hang up and Ted has been calling me while I was on the phone. He continued claiming he was sorry and that his brothers would take care of everything. So I simply told him to spit it out, that I had just spoken with wife number 8 and didn't have the patience to be kept in the dark. Apparently, Ash has some mental issues and despises me. He photographed me on his bathroom wall, which was smeared in pee and possibly other human fluids. He appears to have had some of B number 1's daughter, F14. I'm honestly not sure what she did to him to deserve this. Ted, disgusted and outraged, walks into his bedroom and discovers photo books on his nightstand that were meant to be at his parents' house. You can guess which photographs were cut out and scratched off. All of the comments about manic behavior were more realistic than I would have wanted, and he dropped out of disgust when he saw our yellow-stained wedding photo. He goes to get it and discovers the cat under the bed, scared and starving. When he coaxed her out, she was still covered in dried pee and other bodily fluids. At this point, B number 6 phones him because I did not answer. Ted tells him what he discovered, that Ash is not home, and that he had to take the cat to the clinic. B number 6 orders him to stay there till they figure out where Ash is. They begin calling each other. B number 1 is furious, threatening to murder him because of his daughter, which is why he didn't attend. Now that all of the brothers are aware, there are a variety of emotions running high, ranging from wrath to concern. They do not know where Ash is. Ted phones his mother to scold her for lying, covering up and reconciling them, despite the fact that she had no idea he was lying about the therapy when they were reunited. She cried and stated she knew B numbers 1 through 8 had plagued Ash when he was a child, and she had done nothing about it, failing as a parent. She claimed she was attempting to make amends by protecting him. When we got married, my mother-in-law was quite strict with Ash, and I assumed she was being protective. Later, Ted informed me that he recalled his mother questioning if it was a good idea to have him as best man, which we both overlooked as weird. She had always urged Ted to be involved in Ash's life, as she explained to him after their fight, claiming that the more present Ted was in his life, the more stable he was. She stated that she never told him since she did not want to put him under such pressure. Ted claimed that by the time she knew he was lying, he appeared to be in good health and had overcome his problems. After hanging up with his mother, he contacted me to apologize and tell me everything. I called out of my other job because I cannot go to work like this. I have a lot to think about, but I will keep you updated. I called Ted and informed him I was on my way since someone needed to care for the cat. He stated he didn't want me to see any of that, but I'm really worried about the cat. At this point I am just numb and want to feel helpful. About an hour into the drive, I received a notice from our Ring doorbell, which logs visitors to your door, and it was a delivery of sunflowers, Ted's favorite flower. He is quite confident in his manhood, so please do not turn this into a thing. I instructed the delivery person to read me the card. With this form of doorbell, you can communicate with the person at the door, and Ash said something along the lines of, "OP did me dirty by sharing our difficulties publicly. Whatever results from that will be her responsibility." I've just broken down. I had to pull over and cry my heart out. I asked my neighbor to please take the flowers and throw them out. I emailed Ted a picture and then drove back to my sister's house because I honestly don't know what to do. I am so bewildered and everything is so twisted up. I had a large family before all of this happened, and I feel like I lost a lot of individuals I cared about and thought of as family. But even in my protected world, I can't see or justify what's going on right now. I do not want to lose my husband, and I'm concerned about the cat. I'm afraid Ashton will hurt himself or my spouse. I phoned wife number 1, and she is quite concerned for her daughter. I don't want her to feel terrified, but I can't soothe her since I'm also scared. I cognitively understand that none of this is my responsibility, but I am the link between everything that has happened, and I simply don't know what to do. I'm okay, or as fine as anyone can be in this situation. Ted is with me at my parents' house. He brought me my cat, because having a cat on your lap makes life less miserable. Where should I start? You'll probably have 1,000 questions by now, and I'm not sure how to answer them because I've just been waiting to upload everything. Maybe I won't post it at all and leave you all guessing. I will admit that this scenario and some of the comments I've received have caused me to lose some trust in humanity, but I suppose that's part of what makes us human. You want to know what the worst aspect of all this is? I have actual PTSD, and I no longer phrase it in a weird way. Every time I hear someone pee, as in pee hitting the water, I get a feeling of dread in my chest, and the world turns a little staticky. Going to the bathroom on my own has been quite an adventure. I had my first therapy appointment, however. We, fortunately and tragically, live in a world where you can just throw money and make anything happen. Thank you, Daddy, for paying for the emergency shrink. That was an update on how I'm doing, as some of you have asked, but I'll get to the point and why you're all here. What happened to Ash following the flower delivery? I couldn't take it any longer and went back to my sister's. Ted quickly exited and approached me. B number 6 coordinates everything else. He is my favorite brother-in-law, and I don't care whether the others know. Most of them have been rubbish to me at some point or another, with number 10 certainly taking the cake. I haven't got the courage to inquire as to what will happen to Ashley. I believe he needs assistance above all else. B number 1 plainly disagrees, and I'm guessing he's attempting to get the police involved because his daughter is underage. I requested Ted to see the photos. B number 2 advised me to document everything, which I believed would be useful. It didn't. It merely sparked additional questions, but hey, I have a therapist who can help me work through them. Right now, I don't have anything further to say. I apologize for wasting your time, but I am sure this isn't done, and I will have more to say, maybe later, maybe tomorrow. They found Ash. B numbers 3, 4, and 8 showed up to his house, and he was present this time. Apparently, he had not seen Ted's presence and was unaware of the impending storm. Punches were thrown, yelling, more punches, and one trip to the ER later, Ash is now in a psychiatric hold being evaluated for a variety of issues. Ted's mother continues to try to contact him. I'm not sure if it's to apologize or to question about what's going on because, in general, everyone is upset with her, but I'm over her. I believe this is the hardest reality check a person could ever have, yet I have learned a great deal about people, trust, and families. Based on the facts we have, Ted's mother appears to have been correct. Ted's lack of active involvement in his brother's life is what caused this craziness. I guess the epidemic and our distance contributed to his demise. He'll have to deal with it using whatever coping mechanisms they supply him, because Ted has shut off almost half of his family, hopefully for good this time, because neither of us is going to get over this anytime soon. Ash's cat, regrettably, did not make it. That's something I'll always feel sorry about. She acquired a renal ailment that went undiagnosed during the last year and it was too late to save her while she was being abused and neglected. The vet stated that based on what he was hearing, because they were calling the police on B number 4 for animal abuse, and he had to explain some of the situation, she was not going to survive without suffering, so he chose to put her down. Apparently, The issue with B number one's daughter stemmed from his harsh bullying when they were younger. He never had much touch with her. It was all about retaliating in the most effective way he knew. His daughter will undergo treatment just in case. I'm not sure what or how much they told her, but I believe they had to ask her questions about her interactions with Ash, and they would have had to explain why they were asking. That's about it. I am not leaving my husband. I am not peeing on anyone's property. I'm going to therapy, and I've made it clear to everyone that none of them will ever live with us for any reason. I don't mind if the Pope is with them. I just feel like I've lost that caring part of myself, and overall, I still haven't received that apology, but to be honest, I don't want it. Perhaps my therapist will persuade me otherwise, or maybe it's for the best, but for now, I guess I'll just live with it as best I can. Update 2. The sequel. Hello everyone. I just wanted to thank you for the amazing amount of love and support I've received from internet strangers, all of the lovely notes, and overall, for your care for me and my family. I will start responding to messages soon, I promise. It's just been a difficult few of days. My therapist suggested writing to help me organize my feelings and understand what happened, and since some of you have expressed interest, I suppose this is as good a diary as any. I believed a post update might be a little easier to read for those who want to know what happened next in the P-Man drama. It's been nearly 2 weeks since I first opened the Pandora's box that is my husband's family, and you all know what happened. I will be eternally grateful to Reddit and all of you for pointing out that there were issues that needed to be addressed and investigated, even if it did wind up turning my life into a peace show. I'm not sure how the Twitter users ended up here, but I'd want to thank you everyone for your support. Many people asked the same questions, so here are the responses. My husband and brothers-in-law. Except for number 6, I don't think I'm capable of dealing with any of them right now. He has always been my favorite, and in general, we should have accepted his advice and isolated ourselves from the family. He has genuinely been the most supportive and apologetic throughout the ordeal. I did speak with number 1 and his wife to offer my assistance in any manner I could, but they graciously rejected, saying I had done enough. I'm not sure if they meant it backhandedly or honestly, but I'm still keeping a distance from them all. The majority of the other brothers apologized for everything. Some accepted responsibility for their roles in this messed up circumstance, while others acknowledged their previous transgressions. I believe this entire family will be financing the psychology industry for the foreseeable future. I did propose that everyone seek treatment because, while I initiated it, this is something that affects the entire family. My mother-in-law. Some compassionate Redditors pointed out that she had probably been manipulated and/or abused her entire life, which I don't refute or agree with, but I do know that she had a complicated existence. We will not communicate with her again till the end of time, after she called to chastise us for separating her family. Her statements went something like this. I've worked for years to get all of you together. I have forgiven all each of you has ever done. Speaking with my husband, and this is how you repay me, allowing a small thing to come in the way of our family. So there's that. Ted, my husband, is managing everything as well as he can. He is also in treatment, working through his emotions. He keeps apologizing, and I believe seeing what his closest friend did to me because of him will bother him for a while. We read all of your comments together, and while he appreciated his atonement, he doesn't believe he earned it. He believes he has years to make up for. He also informed me that he understood if I wanted to divorce him because he couldn't live knowing what his family had done to his wife. I gently rejected, because I still love him and understand that this is not his fault. We'll see how therapy works for him. Where is Ash now? He is still on psychiatric hold. He did ask to see Ted, which was a massive no-no, and Ted declined. He did send him a letter, however. I have no idea what it says, and I don't want to know, but Ted assured me that I'd never have to see him again. When it is deemed safe, he will be relocated to the West Coast, where the rest of his family can cope with him. We have washed our hands of him forever. Number 3 has been in charge of his care and he believes that relocating him far away from us is best for everyone. Ted and him have been discussing the doctor's reports, but I haven't wanted to inquire, which is fine. Many of you advised that we take a break. I resigned one of my jobs and have been working at my father's beach condo. Ted is using part of his vacation time, and his boss has been extremely accommodating. It's the middle of January, so it's not really pleasant outside, but looking at the water is relaxing, and being away from all of the chaos is good. I got a new phone so his family couldn't reach me anymore, and it's been great just the 3 of us. The cat follows me around for a few days. Future actions. I received a protective order. In the meantime, I'm not sure what safeguards number 1 is taking for his daughter. I do know he made her stop using social media. If future legal action is to be taken, it must come from them. We are also relocating. I'm not sure where to go, but neither of us feels like we're home anymore. We'll start looking for houses closer to my family in the coming weeks. What's behind door number 2? Sorry to disappoint you, but there were no human body parts or meat hooks in the closed restroom. There was more of what was discovered in the master bathroom. I don't believe he's a serial killer in the making, just profoundly psychologically disturbed, with bad coping methods and emotional relationships. But I'm not a professional and can't help him. I believe one Redditor made a very solid point regarding him hating women or seeing us as inferior, as he only did his thing with women, me, my niece, and Sunny, his cat. But again, I am not a professional, so I cannot comment further. How am I doing? Certain days have been better than others. I've been to therapy every other day. Thank you to the Redditors who suggested going to the restroom with headphones or a white noise machine, it was quite helpful. My sisters are taking turns visiting, so we'll have someone with us for a couple of hours in case we need anything. The backstory? Many people inquired about the bullying he experienced as a child to rationalize this type of catastrophe. So here is Ted's response to that. Growing up with 8 elder brothers makes you extremely open to criticism, comparisons, and expectations. Our brothers had many years when it was just them, and when the chance came to take it out on someone else, he was the most vulnerable. I'm not attempting to condone or defend anyone's behavior, but there were some things that even I couldn't keep him safe from. Now that I'm an adult, I can understand how messed up they were, and I'm sure my brothers can as well. We've all been fighting demons our entire lives. We did not have a supporting family. Everything was swept under the rug instead of being addressed. That caused us to grow up alienated from reality, what is appropriate, and what is healthy. Some of us have learned more through our marriages, occupations, and life experience. We all still have a lot to learn, but we can't undo the past. All we can do is admit our mistakes and shortcomings and strive to be better tomorrow. Miscellaneous. A few random items that came up. Why didn't anyone check on the cat? We had no reason to. Sunny, the cat, was not extremely gregarious, so when they video called during quarantine, it made sense not to see her. We did not go visit anyone during the pandemic, so we had no idea how things were going to be. Before the epidemic, he was fine, as was his house and cat. I'm not sure how we were expected to know any of this was happening or how we could have stopped it. I'm sorry I let an innocent cat down, and I'll be forever guilty for not being able to help her. What are the chances of having 10 boys, 3 of whom can quit everything and move to the other side of the country? There weren't always 10 boys. Regarding their dropping everything to come, I'm not sure what answer you want. That they recognized how chaotic the situation was. That their spouses could function without them for a few days. That they could take a day off from work and come. That their sibling requested for help and they were able to assist. I honestly don't know what you expect from me with such questions. Why didn't you see it coming? There have to be signs. You would have to ask their family, as you're aware that I am not on good terms with them at the moment. Ted maintains he didn't observe anything, but his perception may have been skewed due to their proximity, and he may have been unaware of it or assumed it was usual. So that's where my life is right now. I'm exhausted and depressed and things are still bad, but I have something to look forward to. A really wonderful therapist who keeps reassuring me that I'm well and secure and is teaching me how to be normal again. Sorry for the lengthy update. Please know that I appreciate all of your compassion and taking the time to read about my follies. I wish you all the best and know you'll always have a buddy here. When I'm ready to go back out into the world, I'd like to have more kind people in my life, including Ellie, Ted, and Tortilla the cat. Edit. I apologize for not being more clear about the 10 brothers thing. Apparently, I may have caused some confusion. I intended to add that there weren't always 10 sons. It is neither my family's or my tale to share. According to what I know, they had 3 sisters. 2 of them died when they were young due to health concerns. This explains why there is a gap between 1 and 8, followed by Ted and Ash. The other one is slightly more complex. She used to rank between 4th and 5th. Yes, I am aware that they had a large number of children, nonetheless they continue to reject contraception. Sorry about the confusion. Update 3, Tokyo Drift. Hello everyone. It's been almost 2 months since the disaster began, and I've just received several letters and comments requesting an update. As is customary, the majority of them were pleasant and beautiful. There are of course, exceptions, but at this stage in my life, I'm used to them and believe they're just part of online culture. First and foremost, I apologize for the delayed update. I know a lot of people are curious about what's happened to Ted's family, but I simply wanted some time to comprehend everything. But here I am, telling you yet another sad part of this story so you can all be at rest. I'd also want to greet the Facebook community. I appreciate folks telling me where they're coming from, because I had no idea the power of Reddit until I wrote my first post. Anyway, Ted begged for some time apart. He is going through a lot of things and has a lot of feelings, which are exacerbated by my presence. He carries a lot of guilt, and opening so many closets and confronting skeletons is a lot to ask of anyone. We are not officially divorced, but we are not looking for a new home together either. We are still in the process of selling our old home, so he has been staying there while I have been staying with my parents. I'm not sure what will happen once the sale of our house is completed, or what he intends to do, but I promised him space, so there's that. He did give me permission to inform you all because, despite some unpleasant messages and comments, the most of you are extremely kind and helpful. Here's Ted's updated family tree. Counting the sisters, B stands for brother of Ted and S stands for sister. B number 1, doctor with some type of military background. Wife, 3 kids. B number 2, surgeon, wife, 2 dogs and a bearded dragon. B number 3, engineer, fiance, and dog. B number 4, teacher and researcher, wife, 1 kid. S number 1, B number 5, works in AITA, not sure of details, wife. B number 6, doctor, single and ready to mingle. B number 7, chef, businessman, wife, 1 kid. B number 8, car sales, wife, 3 kids. Number 2 and number 3, B number 9, Ted's ex-wife and cat. B number 10, Ash. I didn't just throw in the sisters to add some spice to my chaotic scenario. I'm sorry to disappoint, I didn't count them previously because, well, I don't want to offend anyone who has lost a family member, but I'm going by what I know about that family. All 3 sisters were born and died before Ted was even conceived. He's never mentioned having sisters in his life, therefore he just says he has brothers. To me and him, he does not have any sisters. You people are wild. The theories you developed, some more accurate than others, ranged from entirely rational to clearly delusional. However, based on what you and I know about this family, insanity runs in the family. No, they were not all murdered. Sisters number 2 and 3 were twins who died from a congenital defect. My apologies for stating genetic. I'm not sure why so many people assumed it was something only for women. Ted just knows that their lungs were not properly developed, or something like. As you are aware, I am not on speaking terms with his family and hence cannot ask any further questions. They died in the hospital a few weeks after birth, so none of the brothers could have harmed them. Sister number 1 died in a motorcycle accident caused by one of the brothers driving while intoxicated and underage. Why didn't I simply say it outright? Because it is none of my or your concern. It wasn't relevant to our circumstance, and I honestly believe that people deserve privacy. I'm not going to tell you which brother it was, so you can choose whichever fits your story best. Many people have asked about the nasty secrets that their mother forgave them for. I'll post the ones that I have permission to share. I'm not going to reveal which brother did what, simply number 7, because I've already disclosed it, so there's no use in hiding it now. I simply copied and pasted the comment I made then. There are 10 brothers altogether. Brothers 1 through 4 are the classic older brothers, golden children, straight A students. Brothers age 5 and under were used to trying to meet the expectations established by the oldest 4. It was expected that every one of them excelled in a sport, received good grades, attended college on a scholarship, since paying for 10 children's college is difficult, and had a career. Brother number 7 did not want to. He is a great man. He simply felt it was unfair that his life was determined by competing against his brothers. So, after he graduated from high school, he stated that he was studying overseas to become a chef, but that his scholarship would only pay partial tuition and not room and board. His parents were ecstatic that their son was studying overseas to become a well-known worldwide chef. They said, okay, as long as you maintain good grades and cook us your specialty foods when you visit for vacations and such. So he relocated to New York with 4 roommates and pretended to have an international life. He doesn't use social media often, so he didn't need to prove anything. He merely had to make sure to phone his folks at times that made sense given the time difference. He didn't have to video call them because technology hadn't advanced far by then. He just made up some great stories to share during the holidays. He retained the money he received from his parents to pay for tuition and boarding and invested it in something that turned out to be quite profitable. So he moved back to the West Coast and announced that he was now managing eateries. It all came to light when one of the oldest brother's kids expressed her desire to attend the same school as brother number 7. She requested him to take her there and show her around. By that point, he had enough money that there weren't many penalties, but he still cooks Thanksgiving and Christmas meals since he cooks well. So here's what I know because Ted, their mother, or the brother in issue informed me they did it with no ramifications from their parents. Stealing and totaling at least 2 cars, same brother both times. Stealing a car, different brother. Leaving grandma alone for the week when they were supposed to care for her. Stealing and selling things from the house. Other brothers getting into fights that ended up with police involvement. Getting into fights that did not end up with police involvement but did end up with a trip to the hospital. Skipping school events like senior trips and pocketing the money. Public nudity, public indecency and public urination. I guess it does run in the family. One stalking incident ended up with a restraining order. There was plenty of underage drinking and driving under the influence. Where is the father? I last saw him in an urn in the living room of their mother's house, so hopefully he's still there. Growing up, he was an ass, a deeply chauvinist and abusive father and husband. He was a decent grandfather to his grandchildren, but if you have anything to say about it, bring it up with them. Why would you expose your children to such a nasty person? I don't have my own children. Ted's parents were, and still are, quite traditional, with looks being the most important thing to them. All they desired was a perfect family, complete with proud sons and lovely daughters. I'm not rationalizing anything, but their daughters' deaths had a significant impact on them and their families. Why did they have 2 more children after all that happened? They desperately desired another daughter and tried 2 more times before being unable to produce any more children. I'm not sure if they would have tried again, or if her inability to produce further children exacerbated the situation. What happened to Ashley? I do not know. I'd like to claim I don't know and don't care, but I do care as a human being. After therapy, I'm a little more empathetic, and I know he's sick. So I care and hope he is okay, able to recover and go forward. I simply want it would happen far away from me. I'm not sure if he's still institutionalized, but I have it on good authority that he's staying away from me. So that's it for that family. I hope this answers all of your questions concerning them. As always, a big thanks to B number 6 for being fantastic. He has been really supportive throughout everything, and in general, he is a nice person who is still single and looking to meet new people. When I told him I was updating again, he made sure I emphasized it. So if anyone on the West Coast is looking for a gorgeous doctor with a crazy dysfunctional family, he's the one. Tortilla has sincerely appreciated all of the love, affection, and appreciation. As I indicated in a previous remark, I apologize for not paying the cat tax, but right now I am not comfortable sharing images of anything, including Tortilla, with anyone. Nothing against you personally, just feeling uneasy after everything that has transpired. So I really apologize for that. Since I'm evading taxes, I'll tell you she's a black cat. She's named Tortilla because I'm not very good at cooking, and the first time I made Ted tacos, I completely forgot the tortillas were in the oven, and they got fully burned. As for me, everything sucks and will continue to suck for a while. Boo, that's just life. I had to quit my job after quitting my previous work, therefore I'm currently unemployed and freeloading at my parents'. But my father claims he doesn't mind, he just wants me to be okay, and I love him for that. It's good to have my sisters around, plus there are more kitties to play with. Tortilla, I am still in treatment, which is about all I can do with my life right now. On the plus side, I'm sure none of these cats have ever been groomed as frequently as they have in the last 2 weeks, so they're all exceptionally shiny and attractive. That's it for today. Sorry for the lengthy read. Update 4. Return to P-Town. I've written numerous updates over the course of the year, some while joyful, some while sad, and some while drunk, but I opted not to upload them in order to give you a suitable conclusion to the story. But I recognize that real life does not have a proper ending. There will always be more going on. Hopefully, this will be the end of it for all of us. And I will be able to go on, while you will be satisfied with how things have turned out thus far. I really hope you do. I also hope that writing this and giving it to you offers me the closure I need. I'm writing this update now because I'm in a good enough state to open up and relieve my guilt over the lack of updates. It's quite wonderful of most of you to check on me during the year. It's incredible to me that it's been over a year and there are still new letters and good comments in my inbox. I apologize for not responding sooner, but please know that I read each and every comment, and it warms my heart to know that there are so many wonderful people out there wishing a random stranger kindness. I'll admit that part of me is always frightened to write an update. Part of it stems from the real-life consequences of putting things online, such as being identified, which I have experienced. The second aspect is the finality of it. It's strange, but I feel like if I don't tell you about it, I can simply pretend it's not happening. It's not really healthy, as my therapist has pointed out. So I'm putting on my cat hair-covered big girl pants and confronting the reality. It's crazy to believe that this all began just a few days into the new year, and how close we are to doing it again. I recall spending New Year's Eve cuddled up on the couch with Ted and Tortilla, hoping that 2021 would be full of adventures and excitement. I guess I should watch my wishes for the future year. I'm not even sure what I'll do that day. Perhaps I'll pack tortilla and we'll go on an adventure, as I don't intend to sit on the couch and reminisce over the past year. I can say though, that it was a very comfortable couch, and I miss it tremendously. I adore Ted. I believe a part of me will always adore him. I've spent such a lengthy and vital part of my life with him that it feels strange to be without him in my daily life. Short story. He asked for a divorce, so there you have it. It was as amicable a divorce as possible given our circumstances. We cried during the entire process. He called to ask for my pardon. I begged him not to leave me, but as much as it hurt, it was necessary for him to recuperate from everything that had happened. We are still buddies. We've been best friends for so long that even if that part of our relationship is locked off, we're still there for each other. I know you don't want to hear about my heartbreak. You probably want the latest gossip and juicy information. So I will give the facts I have. Just keep in mind that now that we've parted, I'm not privy to many details. I'll divide things into sections to make it simpler to read, but not in chronological order, just to keep things organized. My ex's family, B number 8, wife, 3 children, fish, and a cat. I haven't heard from them since the divorce, but I know they previously adopted a kitty named Bob. B number 7, wife and child. No idea. I haven't heard from them. I haven't asked. B-6 with his girlfriend. He is no longer single and ready to socialize. I'm overjoyed for him, and his new girlfriend is genuinely amazing. She is a fellow Redditor who has read the Pate saga and still loves him, despite his dysfunctional family. I've met them several times this year and she really is nice. Of course, they have their ups and downs, as well as conflicts with the other brothers, but they are doing well overall. B number 6 actually came to see me after Ted sought for a divorce. He hugged me and informed me that I would always be his little sister, regardless of whether I was married or not. It's been extremely heartbreaking to lose my husband and half of what I regarded to be my family, but I did get to keep a brother because I only have sisters. B-5 and his wife. He never liked me, and I finally figured out why. He's not very fond of Ted. As you are aware, the brothers were not particularly nice growing up, and it appears that number 5 was the worst of the bunch, and he disliked it when Ted stood up to him or defended Ash. He hasn't liked him since they were younger. I have had no interaction with him, nor do I intend to. B number 4, wife, child. They have remained largely unchanged, they were always friendly. B number 4 made certain that Ash was on all of the do not adopt lists at every shelter, shop, or vet in the area where they live. He claims that even if Ash does well for the rest of his life, he will not risk another cat or other animal going through the same ordeal if his mental health deteriorates. So at least I left that family with the confidence that future cats would be safe from Ash, which made me feel a little better. There's always the potential he'll get a stray or someone would adopt one for him, but B number 4 told me that he'd do all in his ability to prevent it from happening again. B number 3, his now wife and their dog got married when the saga began. They were only engaged at the time. It was a lovely ceremony, but I did not go despite the fact that both the bride and groom invited me and stated I should come because I was family. Ted asked me to come, but I didn't want to destroy any more family photos. I did, however, attend via Zoom, which is how I knew it was enjoyable. B-2, his wife, 2 pets, and a dragon. B number 2 was quite helpful when everything transpired and was among the first to take action. He apologized extensively to me, both for the initial pressure to let Ash move in and for what happened subsequently. He felt particularly sorry for his role in his brother's mental health. I thanked him for the first 2 apologies and informed him that the third one was not mine to accept. He was understanding and stated that he would concentrate on improving his family's ties and that it was unfair that I should bear the brunt of the consequences for something that was not my fault. After the divorce, he contacted me and said that if I needed anything, he would be there for me. Overall, it was a wonderful message, and I know he's also in therapy now, which is fantastic. B-1, his wife, and 3 children. As you know, B number 1 was the most offended by the entire scenario because it affected one of his daughters. Last you heard, they had requested me to remain away and give them some room. But his oldest daughter contacted me. She's a darling who told me she misses her life before everything happened. I did not inquire about what her parents told her, but I felt they had to tell her some version of events because she is old enough to ask the correct questions. He did not press charges, but they moved. Fortunately for daughter number 1, they moved to the East Coast, where she discovered an incredible culinary program that she is extremely enthused about. Daughter number 2, according to her sister, mother, and therapist, is doing quite well. Apparently, she never had much interaction with Ash outside of large family gatherings with others. He was taking his anger out on her because she is the spitting image of her father, not so much for her as an individual, but for who she represents and the fact that she is a woman. I'll go into that later. She is still in treatment, but she is very irritated about it, claiming that it has nothing to do with her and that she is distraught about having to move and leave all of her friends. Overall, B1's family is safe and adjusting to life on the East Coast, although they continue to keep a distance from me. They haven't liked the weather so far, but I have told daughter number 1 that she is welcome to come anytime. B1's wife and I are friendly enough that she would let it. B1 and I haven't talked since everything went down. All communications have gone through his wife and daughters. The wicked Dupway, from the West. Some days, just for fun, I'll go into our SLJ Nomal and tell myself that mine wasn't as horrible as others. I'll see some and wish I had one whose worst behavior was to wear white to my wedding. We were never best friends, but she was not always mean to me. Living on the opposite side of the country created a barrier in our relationship that I believe we were both comfortable with. We didn't have much interaction with one another, and we were fine with it. She had so many other dills around who raised her grandchildren that I wasn't as significant to her. I continued to call her on her birthdays and anniversaries, and she always invited me over for the holidays. Whenever we went over the holidays, the house was always so full of people that I was just one more or one less, and I was fine with that. I believe that's when my doormating with this family began. I tried to be as helpful as possible and would do whatever to help, but it ultimately backfired on me. I believe the most time we ever spent together was during our wedding preparations. Our wedding was never significant to Ted or me. All we wanted was to be together. Our parents, on the other hand, were eager to have a large wedding. I'm the first of my sisters to marry, and given the age difference between Ted and his elder brothers, there hadn't been a huge occasion like this in a while. I have absolutely no regrets about marrying Ted. I could do without the large wedding though. I wish we could have married at the courthouse with just the two of us. Or perhaps gone to Vegas and been married by Elvis. I'm not sure if they still do that, but it seems just as, if not more memorable than a large 200-person wedding. I recall how happy she was when we eventually agreed on the big wedding. It was as if for the first time, I wasn't simply another dill in the pile. It's foolish, but it felt good to feel that I was finally allowed into the inner circle, even if it came at the expense of a lavish wedding. I attempted to involve her in the process as much as possible. With 10 sons, I assumed she didn't have many opportunities to do female things. She was sweet to me back then, possibly to get her way, and I was too naive to see. I stayed at the Golden Dill for a bit after that, I believe, until another granddaughter was born. Then I was relieved to be out of the spotlight, returning to our normal coexistence. It was exhausting to be on her side, with all of the expectations that come with it. It's weird to go back and remember how much I wanted her to like me, and now I'd do anything to keep her unaware of my presence. After Ash was admitted to a psych facility, she did everything she could to tear me down. I went to see her, along with the rest of the family, for a time, but eventually made apologies with some of them. Certainly not with her. I saw her once, when she arrived with some of the others to pack up Ash's place. She went to my parents' house solely to yell at me, which was terrible. The worst part was that she timed it so perfectly. My parents were at work, and my sisters were either at work or school. I was the only one sobbing on the other side of the door. I heard the doorbell and rushed to open it only to see her. She didn't even try to be nice and just threw it all on me. She brought up everything I had ever done to her and her family. She told me I was a failure as a wife and that she hoped the divorce would ruin me. She stated she would make sure her son grabbed everything from me and that she would not stop until I was impoverished. She stated she was glad I was barren because she couldn't bear the thought of mixing her blood with mine. She said so many horrible things that day, but the last one was the most memorable. Ted and I were never trying to have children. But we weren't trying not to. We assumed we were steady enough that if it was meant to be, it would happen, but it never did. Does it make me an evil human being to be grateful that my parents' neighbors contacted the cops and removed her from the property? My sister discovered me sitting on the floor, crying with tortilla. She contacted Ted and I believe he heard the account from B5, who drove her. I never saw him. I haven't heard anything from her since. I'm not sure what Ted told her or what she told him. I only know that she has left me alone since that day and I am grateful for that. Ted is the universe's most decent ex-husband. I could tell you 1,000 things about Ted or none at all. It feels strange not to be with him, but I try to respect his wants and wishes. As you are aware, he sought a divorce from me on the grounds that, I cannot do this to you. I can never forgive myself for placing you in this situation. I do not want to expose you to my family again and allow them to damage you. I was irritated because he was making decisions for me without considering what I wanted for myself. But, after many long therapy sessions, I realized that while he claimed to be doing it to protect me, it was actually to protect himself. Or, at the very least, to alleviate his guilt. Perhaps not having me around made him feel as if nothing had happened. Or he honestly believed that this was the best option for me. It really sucks because I've always thought about what was best for us as a whole, not just myself and him. However, his solution was not to have a team. Some days I wake up loathing his name and shadow, while others I simply stare at my phone and contemplating phoning him. Sometimes I lose that battle and end up calling him. He always responds and assures me that he is there for me. Anyway, we sold our house and he moved out. He temporarily relocated to the West Coast to address family difficulties while his divorce was being conducted. He returned because his job was waiting for him, and he enjoys it. I'm not sure if I should be grateful that he's still living in the city that was once our home, or angry that he's ruined an entire city I like. It's unfortunate that every area I want to visit is packed with memories of him. Perhaps it is time for me to relocate and begin anew somewhere where no one is aware of my dark, tragic background. I'll tell you more about Ted's travels on the East Coast later. This section contains life updates. Some individuals expressed concern for him and sent him well wishes via comments and messages. I passed them forward, and he thanks me. I'll copy and paste a portion of the update I made but did not post the day he returned to town and invited me to meet. This is about your Redditors. I apologize in advance, it wasn't a good day. I never used Reddit much. I'm wondering where my life would be without you now. I probably would have allowed his family continue to doormat me, and who knows, maybe I'd be with Sunny right now, and Ash would have gotten all of his life's ambitions fulfilled. To this day, I still receive texts wishing us both well. A part of me wishes I didn't have to share you with him. Why does he deserve your best wishes while I'm the one who ended up alone? You are bigger and better people than me. I did tell him that you hoped he was okay. I'll admit that I told him partially to hurt him and make him feel guilty. Maybe I'll regret it later, but I simply needed him to feel anything other than sympathy for me. Do you know what the worst part is? He laughed. Even though it was a dead man's chuckle, I was concerned by the sound. It isn't fair that he gets to chuckle. He thanked you and expressed hope that one day he will be the man you believed he was or could be. He also apologized for disappointing you all and acknowledged that this is not the ending you had hoped for. Although some of you wished for this conclusion from the beginning, I'm not sure if you've changed your mind after all of the updates or if you still believe I should leave him. He has always preferred to be in control, so he left me alone. Aside from that, Ted is as good as he could be. He has good and terrible days, just like I do. We meet on a regular basis to check on each other. He informs me about his life and I tell him how I am doing. After his mother paid a visit to my parents' place, I moved out. I haven't asked him to my new apartment and I don't sure I want to. I believe having a house without memories of him or his family for the first time in a decade is just what I need right now. Tortilla misses him, but I try to convince myself that she understands my pain. I don't know where to start. And Ash was first committed following his dispute with his brothers, and B numbers 3, 4 and 8 arrived to assist sort things out. He stayed for a few weeks. During his visit, he repeatedly requested to see Ted, but he never did. However, he did once write him a letter. At the time, I didn't want to know what it stated, but I eventually asked Ted about it. He stated that he had written to tell him to stop asking to see him, that he needed to prioritize himself and his life over Ash for once, and that he should stop putting Ash's wants ahead of his own. After a few weeks, B number 3 arranged for his relocation to the West Coast. I'm not sure whether he was transported to another facility or released into their custody. Once that was completed, which took about 2 months, their mother, B number 5, and B number 7 arrived to pack up his flat and legally relocate him back west. As previously stated, I am unsure of the exact timeline, but he eventually moved in with their mother. B number 2 was in charge of overseeing his therapy, and I trust he will continue to do so. It was difficult for Ted to come over and express himself to his family. He first met with his brothers. I'm not sure if everyone was there, but based on what Ted told me, I believe the most involved were. B number 3 told them some of what he had discussed with his doctors while on the East Coast. He had treatment for a psychotic episode. I believe he's been in treatment since then. I'm not sure what the precise diagnosis is, but they discussed a lot of topics. They discussed their background and how their bullying affected Ash, how Ted's protectiveness fostered an unhealthy emotional relationship, and a few other topics came up. I'm not sure if these are the conclusions they reached, if they were told by Ash's therapist, or how they arrived, but this is what Ted told me when he returned. It was strange listening to him talk about it. He was so disconnected, as if he were speaking about someone else's family. But I suppose that's his method of digesting things. I do not know. Many of you have wondered what kind of bullying they may have done to cause him to behave this way. Ted answered a few of those questions for me. To maintain consistency, I will not tell you who did what. As usual, you can use your own brother to match your story. Just be aware that, while some brothers are contrite and regretful for their actions, it appears that others are not. Many of you also made suggestions about the type of torturing they did, with some being more accurate than others. Apart from your regular standardized bullying of punching, humiliating, mocking, tricking and insulting, there was also locking him in cabinets, stealing his clothes, leaving him outside all night long, locking all bathrooms so he'd have to wet himself, threatening with a variety of items and weapons, leaving him at places and making him walk miles to their house in a variety of weather, putting him in diapers, antagonizing him, tying him up and dragging him on ATVs through. I could continue, but you get the picture. I understand that some individuals don't get along with their siblings, and that bullying and sibling rivalry exist, but it looked so wicked when he described it. What could he have done to deserve this? I don't understand it. It doesn't excuse his actions, but it explains some of it. His dislike of women stems from a similar source. The common assumption is that he blames his mother for failing to protect him from all of this, which reinforces his perception of women as weak and useless. If his mother couldn't keep him safe from his own brothers, who could? I suppose his brothers didn't assist him with that growing up because they would isolate him from any girls that shown an interest in him. That's how his emotional bond with Ted began. He was the only one who stood up and defended him, but we all know how it ended, for now and hopefully forever. Ash is staying in the West. I am sorry I do not have more definitive answers for you. I'm sure many of you expected them, but I can't bring myself to ask any more questions. While this all began, while I was fresh out of school, I retained 2 pairs of sneakers from the PE event. I threw out the majority of the rest, but those 2 pairs, the first pair is irrelevant to you and the second were the first things I purchased with my own money from my very first internship while still in school, represented the very first step. As a result, shoes have contributed to my independence. Having to stop both of my jobs, move back in with my parents, and lose Ted sucked, and all I could think about were those shoes stowed in a box and how unjust it was that I had lost everything the shoes represented. I'm steadily rebuilding my life. The first steps will be to move into my new apartment and get a new job. I guess I'll wait and see what the future has in store for Tortilla and me. I haven't worn them since they were peed on, but maybe I will sometime when I feel more like myself. Happy holidays, Reddit. I'm not sure what mine will be like, but I hope yours is full of light and joy. Much love from my tattered heart, Ellie and Tortilla. The cat update, 5 PE and tell no tales. It's been a long since I was here. I even quit posting unpublished updates since I didn't want to worry about life or anything. How are you all doing? How is your new year going so far? I hope everyone has been happy and healthy, that all of your kitties have been petted and that your bladders are empty. I'll keep this update as short as possible. I've received a few comments and letters indicating that I write too much and take too long to get to the point, and I apologize for that. Although it is not my responsibility to keep you updated on my life, I am writing to express my gratitude for the outpouring of love and support from many Redditors, as well as those who have inquired about my well-being and requested updates. So, if it's too long for you, feel free to quit reading at any time. My story has no bearing on your life except for entertainment, so you can remain or leave and I'll be none the wiser. I last posted just before the holidays, and I'll admit that my holiday preparations were not the best in retrospect. I know I mentioned in my last update that I wouldn't sit on the couch and wallow in self-pity, but you can guess what I did. I was honestly not in the mood to celebrate. My family is very into Christmas and pleasure and joy, and I didn't want to dampen the spirit. So I told my father I was spending it with a friend who had just lost her husband. She traveled across the state to be with his folks, and I stayed at home with Tortilla, watching movies. Ted contacted me on Christmas Day, and for the first time, I did not respond. Are you all incredibly proud of me? I knew you would be, after so many of you agreed that I should cut them off entirely. Please accept my baby steps. Even after everything that had transpired, I couldn't bring myself to give up on my best buddy. He texted me later in the day to check in and see if I was okay, claiming he had seen my sister's photos on Facebook and noted I wasn't there. Should I ask my sisters to block him? He loves them, and they love him. He was a fantastic guy before everything happened, and he's still doing his best now. I'm not sure if it's how I write, when I write, or if I'm influenced by our relationship, but Ted isn't as bad as some of you make him out to be. He is also going through a really terrible experience, and having to confront everything his family did is difficult. I waited on his text for a few hours, contemplating how to respond, and honestly came up empty-handed. I wasn't doing well, but overall, he's the one who knows me best. Our 10 years together were not wasted. We didn't end our relationship because we were no longer in love, but because it was best for us both. In some ways, you have a unique opportunity to read my updates. You are not the ones whose life were shattered and you moved from having a loving family to being absolutely alone. I had my family and you to rely on, but Ted didn't. Because of all of this, some of his brothers have developed a stronger dislike for him. He lost his greatest buddy and younger brother. He has lost his partner. He lost Tortilla as well, and while it's a relief, he also lost his mother. You only know my side of the story and the morsels I share with you, so it's easy to villainize him and think of him as a monster for hurting me. But he is still a human. He was also deeply hurt throughout the event, and he is human and bound to make mistakes. Even though I don't think our divorce will ever be considered a mistake by him, I ended up simply responding with something like, "Wasn't up for a party, so just stayed in with Tortilla. Merry Christmas." And I guess he realized something was wrong and came to my park. He is familiar with the general area where I live as well as the gorgeous park that I frequent, and he invited me to meet him, which I accepted. Yes, you can be less proud of my minor accomplishment that day, but again, baby steps. We spoke for several hours. I had no idea he was spending Christmas alone. Otherwise, I would have preferred to spend it with him, or at the absolute least, invite him to my parents. Many of you have urged that cutting him off completely is the greatest option, but I disagree. I might alter my mind later, but for the time being, I believe we still need each other a little. Every day, I think I need him a little less, but that day, I needed him, and sometimes he needs me as well. I'd like to believe we can be friends, but I realize that in the long run, it might not be feasible. He'll eventually find another partner, and they're unlikely to like me. Or perhaps we will grow apart. Maybe one day I'll loathe him for what happened. But for the time being, he has benefited me in ways that others cannot. It may sound ridiculous from my perspective, but I don't believe anyone else genuinely understands who I am right now. I am not the same person I was before everything happened. I'm no longer the same person I was a year ago. Going through this with his family affected both of us dramatically, and not everyone understands why I'm not comfortable bringing children to the restroom or why I had to leave sick when my boss brought me sunflowers on International Women's Day. I believe we both lost aspects of ourselves that were perhaps a little too naive, and we've both matured in ways neither of us imagined, but which have helped to ground us. I've had a very fortunate and protected existence, and while I've lost part of the brightness that once filled me, I believe this new shade has helped me connect with people more and understand their hardships in a more empathic manner. Or at the very least, I would want to believe so. Perhaps that is just what going to therapy accomplishes for you. In that case, I strongly advise everyone, P or not, to go to therapy. Overall, I believe we are both doing a little better. Tortilla is doing well. Aside from a minor health scare, she is doing well as usual. Our new apartment has a lot of windows, which means there are plenty of sunny spots, which she is loving. Ted lost communication with the majority of his family and is currently in limited contact with B4 and B6. So I don't really have anything to say about Ash or the rest of the brothers, except for B6, who's quite sorry that Ted is keeping his distance from him, especially because he has cut off almost everyone. But he says he understands and will be there for him when he is ready. It was said several times that what was previously referred to as bullying was actually abuse, and I believe it is crucial to utilize that term when characterizing their childhood. I believe that part of the difficulty that led the House of Cards to collapse was the dismissive attitude of everyone involved, even Ted and Ash, who dismissed it as boys will be boys. Brothers are like that. Or simply I thought it was normal. I believe that if any of the spouses or I had known the scope of things in their youth, we might have made quite different decisions. Of course, my ex-mill bears a lot of responsibility for it, but I suppose we've all learnt from it. I don't think I'm ready to start dating yet. I believe I need to learn to be alone first. I've been with Ted since college, and it's been quite some time. I don't think I know how to perform first aid anymore, but I'm sure I'll be able to Google it when I get there. It's been strange adjusting to alone. I don't want to call it loneliness because sometimes it's pleasant, you know? I'll finish a book and close it, and the place will be quiet, not eerie, but comforting. I've had to learn a lot, which has made me realize how much I rely on others to assist me with tasks that I could always handle alone. I replaced a tire for the first time. It was a terrifying encounter because my tire popped on the highway, but I made it. After losing a bunch of plants, I realized that different plants take different care, but I now have a small basil plant that is thriving well. I discovered that I dislike action films. The fast pace and continual pressure do not appeal to me, I learned how to cook shrimp. Ted is allergic, so we didn't have any at home. Pro tip: remember to devein your shrimp. I also miss certain aspects of my time with Ted. I had to drive myself to the emergency room after missing a carrot with a knife, and I believe hospitals should offer valet parking. Tortilla had a health scare, and sitting alone in the waiting room was quite unpleasant. The death anniversary of a childhood buddy passed, and he was not there to comfort me. I likewise despise mopping and am forced to do it myself. That's about it. I don't think I've seen Ted since Christmas, though we do text and contact each other occasionally. We're learning to be apart without giving up all of our support at once. We're still healing. I'm still healing, but I can confidently say that I can see the bright side now, when previously it was just a matter of taking each day as it came. I am not sure if that makes sense. Ted's birthday is coming up. I don't believe I'll go see him, but I'll ask his buddies to make sure he is not alone. I've considered adopting an elderly cat for him. He's always had strong feelings for them, and I believe it would be beneficial for him, but I don't want to go too far. What do you all think? Finally, I'd want to thank you for your ongoing support and best wishes. You actually are a fantastic community that exemplifies the best of human nature. Of course, Reddit has its dark corners and unpleasant people, but the vast majority of you are such a powerful support system without even knowing me or the many others you have assisted. I'm simply thinking that maybe the internet isn't so horrible. I'll make an effort to repay and spread all of the generosity I've gotten from you all, and perhaps, one Redditor at a time, we might leave this place a little better than we found it. Right now, I believe this is as good a last update as any, a somewhat happy conclusion with a promising future. I'm not sure, maybe I'll surprise you all like Gilmore Girls and offer you a year in the life somewhere in the future, but for now, I can assure you that everything will be fine. Head pets for everyone who want them, intended for cats, but I don't discriminate by species, and my love for everyone from my repairing heart, Ellie and Tortilla. Update 6, Return of the P-Man. Hello nice individuals. How are you? Almost a year has passed, and I hope we've all gotten older and wiser. It's endearing to know that even after all this time, people are still following me and sending me encouraging messages and comments. Also, thank you to everybody who reported me to Reddit Care. I had no idea they offered that service. I hope it came from a position of care and concern. I believe the story was shared on TikTok at some point, so hello to everyone who arrived from there. At this time, I expect AOL chat groups or Yahoo Answers to appear. The new 20s are kicking my ass, and not in a particularly good way. I can't wait for this decade to end. A Redditor referred to my previous update as a holiday special, which made me laugh. I don't think they meant it kindly, but it made me laugh because I am a total sucker for the Hallmark Channel. So here I am again, following the holidays. For my enemies and those who don't want to sit through a half-hour rant, here's the TLDR. I bought a robot mop, my basil died, things began to seem normal, my ex-husband attempted suicide, and I'm now back at my parents' house. I've highlighted the bits referenced in the TLDR so you can jump to the relevant parts. But now for a more detailed account of events, which may not be in chronological order. My life-saving robot mop and my dying basil. At the recommendation of several Redditors, I purchased a steam mop. It did help at first, but I still had to go through the motions of cleaning, and the fact that the floor was still damp and my socks were wet is what concerns me about mopping. So, at the recommendation of several Redditors, I purchased a robot mop. I had a room, but I had no idea they also created mop versions. It's perfect, and I adore it. I run her while I'm out for the day, and when I return home, the floors are freshly cleaned and dried. It's the greatest feeling in the world. My small basil plant died. I believe it is my fault because I relocated it from its previous location in the kitchen, where it received more light, but it is now dead. I did create a delicious pasta salad with the rest of it, Oro with cherry tomatoes, mozzarella balls, olive oil, salt and basil. Very simple and wonderful. I was given a few little rose plants and managed to kill them all within a few months, so I gave up on living vegetation. My internal monologue ramblings are returning to some sense of normalcy. Life sucks, and then you die. One of my sisters has always been hooked to that statement, and I believe the beauty of it is that it can be interpreted in a variety of ways. She sees it as a lesson not to dwell on the negative, because you never know when you'll die. But right now I feel it a little more physically. I suppose the romanticized phrase "when it rains it pours" stems from a similar idea. I went on a date set up by a buddy of mine with his coworker, and it was awkward. I'm not sure if I've always been this awkward, if first dates are inherently awful, or if we just didn't click, but I spent the entire evening feeling fight or flight. The guy was great. Perhaps we should have done something less formal than dinner. I haven't been on a first date in years. I suppose most people currently like coffee and I should have followed suit, or maybe I wasn't prepared yet. My new, not so new job, which I obtained after everything happened, is wonderful. My supervisor no longer gives me flowers as gifts. I'm not sure if he was smart and noticed what occurred last year and took the hint, or if someone mentioned it, but now, when everyone else gets flowers, I get lamps. I know that seems strange, but I enjoy lamps and light-up items. In the last year, he has given me a cute kitten nightlight that I like, as well as some fairy lights and one of those Himalayan rock salt lamps. He's a nice guy, and I appreciate his efforts. My co-workers are wonderful, and the work we perform is both enjoyable and rewarding, which is something I did not have before. I used to work 2 jobs, one satisfying and one to pay the bills. It's crazy to have one that does both, and it makes me feel like I wasted so much time with my prior one. So there's a silver lining to everything. Tortilla is doing well. She is now forced to eat prescription food and is really unhappy about it. Even though it's been months, winter is always difficult for her because she becomes extra fluffy, which bothers her. So it's time to do extra brushing and de-shedding. If you have long-haired pets, I recommend the Furminator, but Amazon has cheaper choices. She's getting older, so I do my best to keep her comfortable. One of my sisters got a kitten, and we look after him when she is away. Tortilla simply adores him. Matcha, the kitten, dislikes all of the grooming she gives him and pretends not to like her, but if he falls asleep, he will go cuddle with her. If she wakes up before, he'll flee. I'm rambling, perhaps because I'm not sure where to begin or what to say. It's also a little alarming because I know certain individuals are keeping an eye on me through this account. I don't mind if they do, but it still seems strange, like when you know someone is watching you from afar. I'm not sure whether that makes sense to you people. But yeah. Anyway, when I'm feeling particularly masochistic, I'll browse the comments on sites where the Pia-Man saga has been discussed. Most of you on my own threads are extremely nice and helpful, but outside of my own virtual walls, individuals express harsher opinions. As previously stated, it is both masochistic and harmful, and I'm aware of this. My therapist is aware of this, but it also serves to anchor me and allow me to see things from new perspectives. For example, someone branded me insane for being so infatuated with cats. I hadn't realized it, but a large amount of my updates are about cats and their well-being. This is because I genuinely enjoy cats. That person claimed I displayed more empathy for cats than I did for Ash, my in-laws, or even Ted. And yes, you could call me sociopathic, but domesticated animals in general have little control in what happens in their life. We as pet owners, make decisions for them and strive to make the best ones we can. But in the case of Sunny, I will always feel more pity for her than for anyone else since she was helpless. There was no other choice for her, no safe haven, and no one to advocate for her. Even if you remove the sentimental aspect of my attachment to cats, it was still terrible from a humane sense, and there is a reason why animal cruelty charges were contemplated. Other responses suggested that I was over-victimizing myself, that what I went through was insignificant and that I was overly dramatic, which I may be. They claimed the genuine victims were X, Y, or Z. I believe that everyone involved in this event is a victim in some manner, but being a victim in your own story does not preclude becoming a villain in someone else's. Take my ex-Mil as an example. She has received the least amount of sympathy in what I have read, although her husband was AOS, an abusive parent and husband. I know her upbringing was less than ideal, and she has a lot of unresolved trauma from the deaths of her daughters. Does this excuse her behavior? No. Does it provide some explanation? Maybe. Does that make up for all of the harm she caused? Definitely not. Ash was a victim of an extremely brutal childhood, but part of the reason this took everyone off guard and things went downhill so quickly was that he was very well put together. Or, at the very least, he was fantastic at managing or disguising his emotions. He has an engineering degree from a reputable university, a solid employment and a fulfilling life after graduation. Everything went down with the pandemic and isolation. I'm not sure, and I've thought about it a lot, but what would have occurred if there hadn't been a pandemic? Wouldn't Ash have snapped? Could something else have prompted him? Would anyone else have unlocked the skeleton closet? Imaginary what-ifs are their own ADV. I've imagined so many various lives, with joyful, sad and tragic endings. I know it's not a good idea to focus on those, but I occasionally envy the possibilities. However, I must say that in my wildest dreams I never imagined Ted dying. First and foremost, he is not dead. He is doing fine right now. Please keep in mind that, while this is presented from my point of view, Ted was the actual person in the center of it. I was only a casualty. It took many, many therapy sessions to accept that it wasn't my fault. I was simply the unfortunate one who drew the short stick. Years of violence and dismissive behavior from their family shaped Ash into the person he is now. That would have come out somehow, regardless of my role. I'd like to think that something convinced him to see a real therapist, and that it was dealt with in a safe, healthy manner. But I suppose we will never know. The one thing I've learned to appreciate is that I was the one who broke the camel's back, not B1's daughter. Things would have been significantly different, and far more terrifying. Ted was also involved. As you may recall, I maintained contact with B6 during the divorce, but at the recommendation of many of you and other individuals in my life, I took a step back and removed myself from him. A few months later, B6 phoned me and asked whether I had heard from Ted recently, which I had not. He stated that some family matters had occurred, he did not specify what, and I did not inquire, and that several of them had attempted to contact him but had been unsuccessful. He informed me he was worried and that he was planning to visit our city to check on him and let him know if I heard anything from him. I knew Ted was keeping his family at a remove, especially B6, so it didn't surprise me that they hadn't heard from him. To be fair, Ted is unlikely to simply disregard a family email. I sent him a message informing him that B6 had contacted me looking for him, but I did not hear back from him. Ted and I had separated ourselves from each other by that point, as stated in my several updates, so his lack of response was not surprising. But he read my message. Fast forward approximately 2 weeks, and B6 tells me he's in town and wants to meet with me. I said yes because I missed him and invited him to dinner at a new restaurant that I thought he would enjoy. He responded no, only coffee. That was strange because B6 is a huge foodie who never turns down new restaurants, but I assumed he was only in town for a few days and wanted to spend more time with Ted. We met at my park, and he seemed tough. I only remember taking a step back and feeling dread. That feeling you get when you know someone is going to tell you bad news. To be honest, I expected him to tell me that Ash had returned to town, but he just seemed defeated. He told me that a few more things had come to light in the family, but I wasn't very interested, so I didn't ask for specifics. I'm sorry I can't supply more juicy gossip, which I know you enjoy. When he arrived to check on Ted, he saw him in a serious downward spiral. Ted had never been a big drinker, only socially and on rare occasions. But when B6 arrived at his house at 10 a.m. on a Saturday, he was utterly intoxicated. B6 stayed with him and sobered him up until Sunday, when he caught him up on the family situation. B6 went out to retrieve his belongings from his hotel and returned to find Ted absolutely comatose. Ted spent some time in the hospital when he called for help. I'm not sure if anything else occurred to him or if it was just the accumulation of everything that had happened over the previous 2 years catching up with him, but it appears to me that he had been on a self-destructive bender for quite some time. When I discussed it with my therapist, she said that it might make logic and help to explain the divorce. Maybe I'm simply looking for an explanation for why he divorced me after all these years, but knowing Ted the way I do, it makes sense. He was always an excellent guardian. I suppose he developed that trait early in life while defending Ash. He's the type of person that keeps an eye out for girls drinking at a pub and always stops to see whether an unaccompanied child is safe. He also has some controlling tendencies, which often cause him worry. He is an excellent planner, but he struggles when things do not go as planned. It makes him strict at times, but also highly dependable. Those are all qualities I've always admired about him. During our chats before the divorce, he repeatedly apologized for not being able to protect me and for putting me in danger. Even though I believed I'd persuaded him that it wasn't his fault, I guess he wasn't convinced. He was also coming to terms with the fact that his family was not as nice as he imagined. He recognized he had contributed to the family's dismissive behavior throughout their upbringing. Realizing how awful and horrifying his history was, as well as how wicked some of his brothers are, takes its toll on a person. He was suffering with his own trauma, intense remorse, and a sense of powerlessness. Ted ended up going to a rehab center for a while. He would not allow me visit, but he did send me emails. They are a little too personal to discuss with you, but reading them was an emotionally charged experience. The first few apologized for worrying me and assured me that he was fine. Some were rambling, and that is coming from me. Others were genuinely pretty good. It was an interesting journey to see him go from hyper-polite and apologetic to the man I fell in love with. It was also fascinating to watch him assimilate what I had been saying for years and get insight into things I had never noticed before. Overall, I believe it was cathartic for him. I think writing is the finest release, which is why I'm here. It enabled him to arrange his ideas. I'm not sure why he emails me personally rather than keeping a diary or sending emails to himself, but I'm not complaining. There was one email in which he was angry at everyone and everything. Everything went wrong, and he was frustrated. I felt quite relieved. It was fantastic to see his light returning. When he first emailed me, he suggested that I not respond to his emails and instead listen or read. If I wanted to, I could just remove them and he would have no idea. In the angry email, he addressed me by a moniker he had not used in years, since before we married. That really pissed me up. It was not something serious. He was talking about a trip we'd taken with some buddies. They ended up breaking up in the middle of it because they didn't want to return home because everything had already been paid for, but they also refused to remain with each other. As a result, we had to divide the boys and girls into groups to complete the planned tasks. He felt miserable the whole time. He responded something like, "I have not forgiven Alyssa for Venice, it was supposed to be you, so when There's nothing wrong with the pet name, but it only reminded me of everything I'd lost and all the memories. I disregarded his request and responded to his email. This resulted in increased correspondence between the two of us. He didn't take it hard when I responded, so I'm not sure if that was his purpose all along or not, but we just corresponded back and forth for a few weeks, which was pleasant. We never discussed Ash or his family when we emailed. I'm not sure if it was because it didn't come up naturally or if he was avoiding the topic, but it was good to communicate with him like we did when we first met. We used to converse using Facebook Messenger, and just writing to him reminded me of those days. It's ridiculous how much I still adore him and how much I miss him. Those foolish emails felt like getting my best buddy back. Even if he wasn't my spouse anymore. He's presently back at his place with B3. His wife and dog lived with him for a while, yay remote work, until he was well adjusted. He now takes antidepressants, has a larger support network, and is feeling much better. He stopped shutting people off while still setting healthy limits, which is fantastic. He's reconnected with B3, B4, and B6, his closest friends aside from Ash, and has lost contact with everyone else. I feel awful for his nibblings because I know he was quite attached to some of them and misses them. But yes, that is something he absolutely needed. For what it's worth, B6 has no touch with anyone. He was always distant with everyone except Ted and Ash, which I assume was because he knew. But after all, he's moving closer to B4 and B3, so there's another silver lining. I'm not clear how B3 and B4 interact with everyone else, but I know B4 is involved. He clearly understands and respects Ted's boundaries and does not share information with or about him. Ted and I have met a few times, sometimes for friends' activities, sometimes just to catch up, and I can tell he is doing well. He has regained the weight he lost, and his hair is glossy again. His freckles are no longer visible, indicating that he has spent time in the sun, which is beneficial, and his shoulders no longer slump. He returned to his job this week. He was placed on leave of absence, and I can tell it gives him a sense of purpose. He was never able to stop doing anything, so I can imagine how uncomfortable that time was for him. As a result, we visited a shelter, where he adopted an elderly cat. His name is Socks, I believe because he has white paws. He is a wonderful and affectionate cat. He's also missing many teeth. Ted has been attempting to title him Macbeth, but he does not appear to enjoy it. In Ted's defense, Socks does not respond to Macbeth, so perhaps he will succeed. Tortilla was delighted to see Ted when I visited them. She didn't particularly care for Socks, but that's because she dislikes animals larger than herself. As I previously stated, I am currently living on the East Coast, and 2022 was really difficult for us. 2 hurricanes slammed my town, and my apartment flooded during the emergency. My father regularly welcomes us to their house, so Tortilla and I were safe, but that sucked. I'm not sure if it was a message from the cosmos, divine intervention, or whatever, but the 2 pairs of shoes I preserved were wrecked. Both of them. I did everything I could to salvage them, even consulting with professionals, but they were beyond repair. I mean, it wasn't just those 2 shoes. Half of my goods had to be replaced, along with a slew of other sentimental items. But you already know about the shoes and my devotion to them, even though they were a biohazard. My poor apartment has been through a lot. The floorboards had to be removed due to water damage, and they were already rotting and molding underneath by the time we were able to enter. So it was a significant expense to correct. Unfortunately, much of my furniture and appliances, including the robot mop, had to be replaced. For the record, I did have sandbags, but it was probably too much for them. Insurance covered some of the repairs, but definitely not all. Insurance claims are terrible, but it turned out to be the greatest alternative for fixing things and selling the apartment. I'd always moaned about moving, but moving with only a few boxes was especially unpleasant. I never brought so little with me to college. So I'm now staying with my parents. It's a little frustrating, but I'm grateful to be here with them. The house feels a little lonely because the last of my sisters has recently moved away to college, so it's silent save for the cats running about. But, hey, cats are excellent company. I am in the process of closing on a new apartment in a high-rise, so hopefully this will not happen again. I'll miss my park, but the new apartment is in an excellent position, with everything close. I could also bike to work if I wanted to, but I'd need to learn how to ride first. Why don't I know how to ride a bicycle? Because my father was overprotective and worried we would die if we rode a bike. I'm not sure if I'm too old to learn to ride a bike right now, but I'm willing to damage my ego by trying training wheels. Tortilla will have plenty of bright spots in her new residence because the windows are much larger. I planned to build a catio at my previous home since I had a little terrace, but the current location has a balcony, which appears to be a little risky for a catio. So that's life right now. I've been prioritizing work and spending time with my parents. I scheduled a trip for March, and it will be my first time traveling alone. I'm a little nervous because I've never had to organize a trip on my own. Did I mention Ted is an excellent planner? I have no idea if I'm doing it correctly, but that's the goal. I've been taking classes in the language of the place I'm going, so we'll see how much I learn. I want to share something as well, which is why I ended up writing this update and using the title I chose. I didn't include it in the TLDR because I don't want the haters to read everything I write. If they don't want to, why should they? When Six called me about Ted, I was worried he was telling me that Ash had returned. As you now understand, this was not the case. When Ted sought assistance, I got a letter at my parents' home. It was a letter from Ashley. I didn't feel dread for the first time in 2 years, after the incident. I'm not sure if it's because I was receiving Ted's emails, or if I had done some wonderful healing. My therapist definitely should start charging me more. When I offered her a raise, she declined, claiming that it does not work that way. But yes, I read it. He apologized. He also admitted to several things he had done to me that I had never realized were microaggressions on his behalf. He admitted to a number of his behaviors that had always troubled me. He did not attempt to justify anything, only apologized. He revealed a couple other facts that were both surprising and unsurprising, as well as some that you guessed. It felt a little rambling and frantic, but I understand. He apologized for hurting Ted, said he knew what Ted was going through better than anybody else, and admitted that he had caused irreparable damage and would never be in Ted's life again. Even if he couldn't assist his brother after everything he had done, he knew that admitting his sins would help him make amends to me. Even if Ted had no idea, it was a little way for him to implicitly apologize to him. He stated something interesting. "I'm sorry I broke your marriage, but I don't believe I ruined your life. Ted would not have picked you unless you were resilient." He also thanked me for trying. I tried really hard at first to be friends with him, but after the occurrence, it was a no-go. He stated he had given up on people other than Ted trying for him, and he regretted never giving me a chance. He said he was envious that I could bring Ted happiness in ways he couldn't, and he hated that Ted had lost it because of him. I believe it was simply a method for him to alleviate his guilt over harming his favorite person and observing the impact it had on him while also respecting his limits. I mean, he disrespected mine, but I understand. I have not told Ted about the letter. I do not think I will either. I told B6, and while he was angry at first, he eventually understood and accepted it. He told me it was up to me whether I informed Ted or not, that he didn't think it would do much harm but wouldn't help either. So if I felt obliged to tell or show him, I would wait till he was in a better state, and then run it by his therapist, or do it in therapy. Final thoughts. Christmas has come and gone again, and this time I spent it with my family. My sisters are the finest, and they each gave me a pair of shoes to commemorate significant life events. They gave me an empty shoebox to represent the pair I'll need to purchase to begin this new journey. It was the most heartfelt gift I've ever received, and it made me cry for the majority of Christmas morning. I met Ted for New Year's. We were both invited to a mutual friend's party, and we had a wonderful time. We didn't spend the entire time together on purpose, but we did frequently find ourselves having our own talks without being impolite to others and simply laughing together. When midnight struck, I was seated in the back, away from the couples, and he sat next to me, resting his head on my shoulder. We simply remained in comfortable stillness as everyone else rang in the new year. It's such a comfort to have Ted, our friend, back. I still love him. I probably always will. I've tried distance, no contact, and sleeping with someone else to get him out of my system, but it doesn't work. I'm not sure if he's my fated soulmate, and we'll always gravitate toward each other, or if it's simply the comfort and convenience of being together for so long. But I can't help but love him. I love the man he was before and the one he is today. I adore the one he was in between, and to be honest, I'll probably love the one he'll be every day after that. I will not give up on him, even if I have to. I'd rather keep him as a friend than constantly pushing him away, especially since he makes me happy. I deserve to be happy, and he makes me happy. Is this so wrong? I know most of you keep saying it was good riddance, that he did me a favor and that we should simply stop talking. But I miss him. Maybe it makes me stupid, but well, at least I'll be stupid and content. If he asks me to take a step back, I will, but I'm content to be happy right now and worry about it later. I believe both of us deserve it. We both still have a lot of work to do and more healing is on the way. But for the time being, things are going well, which I believe we both need. I believe that all of us, including you, require good. If you've read this far, I appreciate you taking the time. I wish you all the best. May you find $20 in your pocket, may your favorite drink be available in the shop, and may your coffee be prepared to perfection. But seriously, thank you for always allowing me to communicate about my life without being judged, with love, acceptance, and compassion. Every single one of you is incredible and kind. Please know that I admire and cherish each of you individually. Thank you for taking care of me. Love, Ellie and Tortilla. My dad kicked me out because my stepmom falsely accused me of stealing my stepsister's college savings. Because my stepmother had falsely accused me of stealing my stepsister's college savings, my father expelled me from the house. In light of the fact that many individuals have critiqued my response, I am in need of information regarding whether or not I responded appropriately to my estranged father's recent contact with me. My relationship with him has been strained for the past 8 years, and we have not been on speaking terms. After I had just graduated from college, he kicked me out of the house when I was 21 years old. A few months passed during which I was living with my family until I started working and eventually saved up enough money to move out on my own. At the age of 7, my parents went through a divorce, and when I became 17, my father began a relationship with my stepmother, Becca. Additionally, Becca had been married in the past. However, sadly, her spouse had passed away 6 years before the time that she began dating my father. Additionally, she had a daughter from a prior relationship and her name was Alexa, and she was my stepsister, and she was 4 years younger than I was. I had a pretty strange feeling about Becca and Alexa when I first saw them. It seemed as though they were not pleased to have the opportunity to meet me. I didn't give it much attention because I believed it was possible that they were just shy. In spite of this, I found that the more time I spent with them, the less I believed they liked me. Not only did Becca and Alexa move in with us after a year of dating, but that was also the year that I moved out to complete my undergraduate education. When I was at home, I didn't spend a lot of time with them. Only when I returned home for the holidays would I have the opportunity to spend time with my family. Whenever I returned, they would behave in a really peculiar manner when they were near me. Despite the fact that they were married when I was in my second year of college, they did not appear to have any feelings for me on any level. It was as if they did not appreciate my presence, and they appeared to be more happy when it was just them and my father. I am not sure how to put it into words exactly, but it would appear that they did not like my presence. Because I didn't want to be living in a household where I was constantly made to feel unwelcome, I decided to have a conversation with my father about this matter after I had graduated and moved back in with the idea of staying at home in order to save some money before moving out permanently. However, when I brought it up with him, he told me that I was simply making it up and that Becca and Alexa loved me far more than I thought they did. I made the decision to put my faith in what he was going to say and moved back in. Nevertheless, within a couple of weeks, he was shown to be incorrect. There is no doubt that they did not love me. In fact, they detested the presence of someone like me in their lives. Becca never showed any sign of warmth toward me and just occasionally acknowledged my existence. It appeared as though Alexa had a grudge against me, as she was persistently attempting to irritate me and pick arguments with me for no apparent reason. It was something that I brought up with my father on a few occasions, but due to the fact that their conduct around him was totally different, he believed that I was exaggerating the problem and that they were most likely simply growing used to having me around. This continued for a couple of months, and despite my best efforts to steer clear of them, they continued to make my life more challenging than it already was. I even stopped whining to my father about it at some point since I realized there was no purpose in continuing to do so. The only thing I wanted was to put away enough money so that I could finally move out. Becca and Alexa framed me for stealing Alexa's college savings, which has resulted in my being tossed out of my home in a manner that was rather rudely performed. Becca and Alexa were driving me crazy, and I really wanted to move out as soon as possible. One day, around midday, I left the house to go house searching with a number of my friends. I was looking for a new place to live because those two were driving me crazy. After I returned home in the evening, I saw that my father had already arrived. As soon as I walked into the house, he gave me the expression of being highly dissatisfied and instructed me to gather my belongings and go. The fact that I was unaware of what was taking place caused me to be taken aback. I asked him what was going on, and he responded by saying that he had never anticipated that I would turn out to be such a hopeless and desperate lowlife. He never imagined that I would go to such lengths for the sole purpose of obtaining financial gain. Despite the fact that I had no idea what he was talking about, tears began to well up in my eyes since the things that he was saying were so judgmental. Instead of making an effort to communicate with me, he informed me that he was unable to spare any time for my performance and required me to depart without delay. Following that, Becca entered the room and immediately began yelling at me for destroying Alexa's hopes and dreams. It was her assertion that I had done all of this because I was unable to bear the realization that my father had finally moved on with his life. During the time that she was yelling at me about what I was supposed to have done, I was able to piece together the scenario. On the surface, it seemed as though they were accusing me of stealing money from them, specifically a car that they had provided me for unexpected expenses but that I had instead utilized to make expensive expenditures. Becca stated that I had approached her a few weeks earlier, stating that I was running out of money, and as a result, she had added me to the account where she had stored money for Alexa due to financial constraints. Nevertheless, I had almost completely depleted the account, such that there was no money left over for Alexa's college expenses. The money that she had set aside for her daughter was used to purchase a number of new bags, shoes, and garments from high-end brands. It appears that I had lied about the reason I required the money and utilized it to purchase these items. Due to the fact that none of this had actually taken place, I was completely shocked, and she was lying through her teeth. Despite the fact that I requested that she provide me with evidence to back up all of this, my father informed me that there was no need to do so because they had already searched through my room a couple of hours ago and discovered all they required to validate her account. He claimed that he had discovered all of the stuff that had been purchased with that card hidden away under my bed in a covert manner. When I told my father that Becca had never even added me to the card, he informed me that she had removed me after receiving a phone call from the bank that morning. This was because I would have known if she had added me to the card. Although it had taken a few hours to complete, it was over now. In response to my request that he call the bank authorities to verify this information, he informed me that he did not require any other evidence to be aware of the fact that his daughter was a thief and a repulsive individual. In spite of the fact that I exerted a great deal of effort to persuade him that Becca was lying, he did not trust me. At some point, I was forced to depart. Following that day, I did not communicate with my father in any way. He had demonstrated to me the things that were most important to him, and after the manner in which I had been insulted, I had no desire to communicate with him ever again. After moving into my first apartment, I stayed with a buddy for a few days before moving in here. There were a few months in which I had a difficult time making ends meet, but after that, I was able to make it on my own. At this point in my life, I am living a really wonderful life, and I even have plans to purchase my own home within the next few months. Over the course of 8 years, I have not had any kind of communication with my father, and I have avoided every family gathering that involves his side of the family like the plague because I have never wanted to really meet him. We have maintained communication with one another, and my mother had severed her relationship with my father at the same time that I did. This was due to the manner in which he had treated me. However, at this moment, she appears to be taking his side, which is the reason why I am perplexed. It was a few days ago when my father made his appearance at my residence. Because I was quite interested in hearing what he had to say, I decided to open the door and talk to him on the phone. The address was reportedly obtained by him from my mother, as he informed me. It was only lately that he discovered that my stepmother had fabricated the entire situation, and he stated that he was there to apologize to me for all that had happened previously. Alexa's education fund was something that she had hoped someone would pay for. She had been taking advantage of him for his money for a number of years, and he was completely unaware of it because he believed that he was only providing for his family. He wanted me to forgive him and give him a chance after he had just learned something from his in-laws. He wanted me to give him a chance. It would appear that Becca and her parents had a disagreement a few months ago, and they had lately contacted my father in order to inform him of the facts of the incident that led to my expulsion from the house. She had purchased all of those items for herself and her daughter, but she had strategically placed them in my room in order to frame me and give the impression that I was concealing something. This was exactly what I had expected. She even had her parents phone her pretending to be bank personnel in order to convince my father that she had in fact added me to the card. This was done only for the purpose of protecting her reputation. The actual reason she had done all of this was because she was the one who had used the college fund that her late husband had left for Alexa to pay for her education. She had done this by living a lavish lifestyle. In order to avoid giving the impression that she was a gold digger, she refrained from approaching my father with the request to pay for her costs. The fact that she believed my relationship with my father was going to stand in the way of their relationship was another reason why she detested me. Because of this, she had always had a negative opinion of me. That is how she came up with that plan. To get rid of me and to create a circumstance in which my father would be forced to offer to pay for Alexa's college expenses. On account of the fact that the plan was successful, she was able to accomplish 2 goals at once. During the course of 8 years, her parents had remained silent. On the other hand, as a result of their argument, They recently came to the conclusion that it was finally time to unearth some ancient bones and reveal the truth to my father. He disclosed to me that he had already initiated the process of filing for divorce from her a couple of weeks prior, with the assistance of his previous attorney. At this point, he had arrived to make amends with me. In his statement, he mentioned that he was aware that one of my friend's fathers was a well-known divorce attorney. He then requested that I perform my responsibility as his daughter by putting him in contact with my friend's father. A petition that was ridiculously biased in favor of one party had been drafted by Becca and her attorney. A second thing that my father asked me to do was to find a lawyer who would be willing to reduce his fees for him. As a result of the absurd nature of the situation, I ended up laughing in his face before I closed the door. It was hard for me to come up with the idea that he truly thought he could just drop by, apologize, and then ask for my assistance, expecting that everything would be normal again immediately. Clearly, I was not going to be of any assistance to him in any manner, shape or form. It would be necessary for him to make direct contact with my friend's father in order to hire him as a lawyer, and he would be responsible for paying the fee, just like everyone else. The fact that his previous attorney was unwilling to handle the case because it appeared to be too hard and wanted to retire was not something that I was concerned about. Following the act of shutting the door in his face, I instructed him to leave before I contacted the authorities. My mother phoned me after that to let me know that what I was doing was not appropriate. I had the impression that there was nothing further that could be said, but after that, she called me. I am very perplexed as to why she has suddenly taken a position of support for my father, but I became really enraged when she informed me that she did not agree with my decision to refrain from assisting him. It was her assertion that my father was a typical human being, just like the rest of us, and that everyone makes errors. It was unfair of me to hold him to an unattainable standard and to act as if it was unacceptable for him to make mistakes just due to the fact that he was my father. It was not that I had a problem with the fact that Dad had made a mistake by trusting his wife. Rather, the issue that I had a problem with was the fact that he had trusted his wife more than any other person, including me, his daughter. At the time that he kicked me out of the house, he referred to me as a nasty person and a desperate lowlife. I still haven't forgotten that he said those things. In spite of the fact that he had brought me up and had a direct familiarity with me, he believed that I was capable of committing such heinous acts. Not only did he come to apologize, but he also came to ask for my assistance, even after 8 years had passed. It is quite unlikely that he would have come forward to express his regrets if he had not required my assistance. It took him 8 years to recognize that he had made a mistake, and here he was, repeating exactly the kind of behavior that I had detested him for. I had loathed him for it. I made an effort to explain this to my mother, but she just couldn't seem to get past the fact that he had accepted responsibility for his actions, regardless of how late it was, and that this was significant. As an alternative to behaving in this manner, she said that I should forgive him and present myself as a more mature individual since I should most certainly assist him. The truth is, even if I wanted to, I don't believe I would be able to assist him in any way. I am a friend of his attorney, and I am very certain that I will be able to ask him to talk to his father and collaborate with my father. But I do not believe that I will be able to persuade them to reduce the price of their services. The most qualified divorce attorney in the area does not come at a low cost. Therefore, why would I even want to commit to something that I'm not even sure I could accomplish? Because of this, my mother and I ended up having a heated discussion about it for approximately 30 minutes, and by the time the phone call was over, we were both feeling very aggravated with each other. On the other hand, she simply refused to view things from my perspective, and I was unable to comprehend what she was talking about since I did not believe that she made any sense. At this point, we are also not communicating with one another, and I am pondering whether or not I made a mistake in this regard. Though I don't believe that what I did with my father was particularly inappropriate, the response that I received from my mother is leading me to believe otherwise. I'm not sure if I made the right decision when I declined to assist my estranged father in the divorce proceedings. Consequently, I have made the decision that I will not interact with either of my parents. Following the manner in which my father dealt with me, I do not owe him anything. You guys in the comments are absolutely correct. The fact that he apologized to me a few weeks after discovering the truth is evidence that he would not have apologized if he did not require my assistance. He apologized literally weeks after discovering the truth. I would like to express my gratitude to everyone who left a comment. I really needed it. Regarding my mother, I am not really sure what has gotten into her or why she is siding with my father after such a long period of time during which she has not communicated with him. On the other hand, I am not very interested in learning what is going on. During our conversation, I inquired as to whether or not she was in contact with my father and whether or not she was talking to him. She responded with a negative. It was revealed to me that she had not communicated with my father for the past 8 years, following the fact that I had been expelled from the boarding house. Nevertheless, he was the one who had attempted to get in touch with her on the day that I had slammed the door shut squarely in his face. She explained to me that he had been crying, which was the reason why she had chosen to listen to what he had to say. My father is not exactly a particularly emotional man, and it is quite difficult to make him weep, so she wanted to know what was going on that had caused him to contact her. She wanted to know what was going on. She was able to learn the truth about what had transpired when he attempted to apologize to me in this manner. In addition to that, she had not communicated with him in the past 8 years till that point. Considering that she was in the exact same position as I was at the time, I find it difficult to believe that. It would be more challenging for her to forgive him as a result of the divorce that occurred between my parents. They were really good friends, and I think that this event has brought them back together, or whatever has brought them back together. No matter what it is, the response of my mother has made me realize that she doesn't know me as well as I had previously believed she did, and she most certainly does not comprehend what I am saying. In the event that she had, she would not have become angry with me for not immediately forgiving my former father. Whatever the case may be, I'm going to avoid both of them as much as possible. It is not going to be all that tough for me to refrain from communicating with my father because I have been doing so for the past 8 years already. On the other hand, it is going to be very challenging for me to avoid interacting with my mother. Over the course of a number of years, she has been the only family that I have ever known, and now I have unfortunately lost her as well. Despite the fact that I feel terrible about it, there is not much that I can do about it. I will give her a week to apologize for what she said and how she responded to it. I will give her that time. In the event that she comes to her senses within that time frame, then that would be fantastic. However, if she does not, I am at a loss for what I will do. After that, I might have to cut her off forever, and the entire idea of doing so makes me feel a great deal of sadness. Nonetheless, I am unable to stop myself from doing so. It is also necessary for me to watch out for myself. Update 2. Alright, 1 week hasn't yet passed, but my mother did get in touch with me. Regretfully, it was not to atone. I wanted to test if she would talk to me, so I hadn't blocked her on anything. She did. She believed it would be better to personally clear the air, hence she texted me yesterday asking whether she could visit me and have a personal conversation with me. Since I wanted to straighten things out with her as well and I honestly felt she would apologize, I agreed to let her visit. I therefore treated her quite kindly and everything when she came around. She began by saying she had been considering our last chat and perhaps she hadn't tried to understand me that well, so she was here to give that conversation another go. She asked me to say the same things, which seemed a little strange, but I did it hoping it would help her understand where I was coming from and maybe she would find it simpler to apologize to me so we could call this once and for good. After I finished expressing my emotions about this whole matter, though, Mom informed me she wanted me to have the same conversation with my father now that we had coolly gone over this. She understood my dad needed an explanation for everything and I could respond with respect instead of slamming doors closed. He persuaded Becca to do the same, even though he had believed I had taken her money. He did not call the cops on me. It makes no difference that everything was made up. What counts is that he made every effort to shield me even though he believed I had done the wrong thing. I might so provide him an opportunity to speak with me at least. She would not say no since she knew her daughter had been raised to be kind at heart. But I told her I had no forgiveness in my heart for my father and she did not know me as well as she believed she did. In the past, he treated me like garbage. I have nothing to owe him. Not even an apology. Her not apologizing to me even after all of this infuriated me. I thus advised her to only get in touch with me should she like to apologize following this. I wanted no communication with her otherwise. She then became fidgety and advised me not to act this way as family is all we have at the end of the day. Our life will be horrible if we cannot even rely on them to pardon our mistakes. I asked her to leave as I felt it was just a lot of BS and told her I did not want to talk to her or address this anymore. She told me at last that she cannot leave as she had promised my father she would get me to speak to him. She couldn't go as she had to live up to her promises, unless I told her I would talk to him at least once. She truly wanted me to get things out with my dad. She said she was truly sorry I felt that both my parents had let me down, but ultimately they were my parents and I should forgive them. She said she did not want to lose me. That counts for something since the few mistakes they made were negligible compared to all they had done well in the past. Her even stating that seemed absurd to me. It was her error, I informed her, that she had promised my father she could not even know she could live up to, and it was not my duty to see she kept her word. Once more, I urged her to go, but then she told me she cannot since my dad was waiting to be summoned inside from outside in the car. She wanted not to disappoint him. I at last snapped and began to yell at my mother. This was violated really seriously. She had taken the liberty of bringing my father here, confident she could sway my opinion, but I had made it quite obvious to her I did not want to talk to him. I naturally lost my cool and began yelling at her. I said I was done with her and that she was a horrible mother. She started crying, but it made no difference to me since I was enraged. She kept saying she was sorry about all of this, but I simply kept begging her to leave. I was not in the mood to hear it. After around 15 minutes of dispute, she at last went. I screamed at her as she was leaving and warned her that I would call the cops on her or my father should they ever return. I blocked her then, and I believe I should discuss with a lawyer obtaining a protective order against these individuals should they choose to pay me another visit. Update 3. Alright, so something literally crazy occurred today and I have no idea how to approach anyone about it. I am here to discuss this since I truly need to get this off my mind. Having a day off, I stayed at home today and intended to do nothing. Then Becca and Alexa arrived, and that is not even the most wild aspect of what transpired today. I became enraged when I found they were standing outside my door. I advised them to leave right away, and I even called the cops number. Becca, however, informed me she was there to tell me the truth about my father and specifically why he needed my help, not to bother me. It was good to know she hadn't changed in 8 years. She was exactly as unpleasant and rude as before. Originally I had no desire in talking to her, so I told her whatever she had to say, I was not interested. She then remarked, however, that if I understood what she was here to tell me and could explain why my mother had been abruptly on my dad's side following years of silence, I would most definitely be intrigued. Apparently, I'm not going to lie. That surprised me since I assumed she would not know about any of this. After some thought, I asked her in as I truly wanted to know what was going on. She insisted though, that she was merely coming to tell me the truth and would be leaving without even entering my house. Her daughter told me that a few weeks ago her parents had told her father the truth about the incident that had happened 8 years ago just outside my door. They started a furious argument about it and he resolved to file for divorce. She had been arguing with her parents since she stopped monthly paying them money as she used to. She became a little too avaricious, in case someone wanted to know exactly what they had been fighting over. Even my father wasn't providing the kind of allowance she desired. She started some investigation after her father had decreased her allowance without explanation and discovered that my dad was seeing my mother. She understood he had been conserving money as he most likely intended to be leaving her. She thus chose to remain with him and subsequently apply for a divorce under her own terms finally. But her dad discovered the truth before she could act, therefore their whole conflict took place. They both discovered their own actual hues. Under normal conditions, my dad could have easily ended our marriage without handing Becca anything. But Becca had not worked in the past 10 years, and since he had also been cheating and disloyal to her, she wrote up a petition that would help her. He was not comfortable with that, hence they were battling valiantly. She was telling me all of this because, apparently, my father had threatened her on the phone a few days ago and advised her to back off since I was supposed to forward him to the divorce attorney and subsequently she would be screwed. He was obviously lying, but Becca wanted not to take that chance. She had come to tell me the truth. Though in a sense I was relieved that I at last had an explanation for why my mother had been acting so strangely about my father, I was genuinely stunned that all of this was occurring. Becca said it was up to me whether I wanted to help my dad or not once she had told me everything. She then walked away. She had been of some real benefit to me for the first time in her life, and I'm appreciative of that. I will never be able to maintain contact with my parents once again after this either. It astounds me that my mother tried to gaslight me into thinking my dad deserved a second shot for her own self-serving needs. My parents most certainly fit each other. They are a match made in heaven. Not being in their life anymore makes me happy. Now that I live alone, I would like to thank my lucky stars for having the wise decision not to give any of them another chance. Update 4. Hi, many wanted to know how things were doing with me since I last blogged here some few months ago. I'm really pleased on my own. It's been going rather well. Though I do miss my mother sometimes, I remind myself of how she deceived me and it helps me to cope with her absence a little bit. A few relatives told me that my dad is now back with my mother once more. His divorce was settled a few weeks ago. I'm not very interested in understanding exactly what he lost in the divorce either. A few of my cousins have been invited to the couple's wedding in a few weeks. Though I don't really care, they wanted me to know about it in case I wanted to show up and straighten things out with them. I most definitely want nothing right with them. Right now, life is as it should be. I'm happier and better off living alone. So I'm really satisfied. I told my daughter that I would not attend her wedding if her biological father was present, but she now believes that I am stuck in the past. I would appreciate some advice on the current situation I find myself in, and I'm hoping an outsider's viewpoint can offer me some clarity. For some context, about 24 years ago I was sexually assaulted by a close friend of mine and got pregnant by the encounter. I was inconsolable for months after the event. To make matters worse, I found out I was pregnant at about 20 weeks, and where I lived at the time, it was illegal to get an abortion after the first trimester. My husband had really been my rock and my support during that time, and I do not know how I would have ended up if not for him. He said that I could put it up for adoption or I could keep the child and he would raise it like our other children. I decided to not give it up for adoption, but raising the kid was hard. I am half Polish and half German, and he is half German and half Russian. We both have pale skin, light hair and blue eyes, as well as being fairly tall. I'm about 178 centimeters or around 5'10", and he is 191 centimeters or about 6'3". However, our daughter Luna is about 160 centimeters or 5'3", has dark hair and a brown complexion like her biological father. I often heard snide remarks about me being an unfaithful wife because it was obvious that she was not my husband's child. It was especially hard for me when Luna was young because she looked so much like her dad. My husband took care of my daughter most of the time since I had bad flashbacks whenever I saw her face from when I was assaulted. As she grew up, it died down a bit, but I would still get these horrible panic attacks when I saw her wearing boys' clothes and short hair. Since I was prone to having panic attacks, Luna ended up being closer to my husband than she was to me. Also, she often ended up getting a little more than her siblings from my husband as some sort of compensation because of me. We never told her that she was the product of sexual assault because I was too ashamed, and my husband did not want her feeling different from her siblings. I often told her that me and her biological father got into an altercation and never spoke to one another ever again. About 2 years ago, she got one of those DNA test items and found out she had a relative in the system. Said relative got Luna in touch with her bio dad and they started talking despite my protests. He apparently wanted to speak to me about something he wanted to tell me, so Luna attempted to persuade me to speak with him. I made her aware that me and her father shouldn't ever be in the same room together. Now, Luna is getting married to a lovely young man. Some of the COVID restrictions have been lifted, so she is able to have a decent-sized wedding. The original plan was to have my husband walk her down the aisle, but he had gotten into a bad accident, leaving him in a wheelchair until his legs were strong enough to support his weight again. However, this is not her idea of a picture-perfect wedding day, so she invited her biological father to have the honor of being the bride's father. Her wedding invitation not only invited my rapist, but she totally disrespected the man who raised her. Although I or a bridesmaid could have pushed him down the aisle, she thinks it would not fit the vibe of the wedding. My husband looked so shocked and upset that she would even think of this, but I was furious. I have a visceral hate for that man, and I let her know that I would not be anywhere near him. She told me that this is what she wants and there's no changing her mind, so I told her I will not be attending if he's there. She got upset and told me that I shouldn't hang on to the past, but I laid it out to her that she doesn't know what happened between me and her biological father, so she shouldn't stick her nose where it doesn't belong. Though I feel terrible about what I said and how I said it, and I can't be blamed for her being born or not knowing what happened since I never told her, I still feel as though my wishes should be respected if I say I don't want to be in the same room as someone. I'm now okay with her contacting her father. I just do not want anything to do with him. Also, it's rude to replace your father with another man who you've barely known for 2 years because of something he couldn't control. Can anyone offer me a perspective that I'm not catching? Has anyone ever dealt with this, and if so, how? Second post. Deleted by the subs mods but recovered. Before I get started on the update, I have a few things I want to address. A lot of people have questioned me on why I did not tell my daughter that she was a product of sexual assault. The only answer is that I was ashamed of myself. For some context, before I got married to my husband, I actually was very close friends with my attacker. We grew up together in a small community and our families were close. Our parents even wanted us to get together. He was always interested in me, but I didn't give him a chance until university. I broke it off with him and started dating my husband, but I never cut him off because we were very close. He invited me over to drink. This was normal for us, and when I started getting a bit tipsy, he or it PD'd me. I was very traumatized by the situation and tried to get him jailed, but I couldn't. He had a very good reputation, so everyone believed him. Even my own mother, when he said I willingly came over and did it with him. I eventually stopped pursuing because of the social pressure, which only got worse when I found out I was pregnant. I eventually left that place with my husband and kids to live somewhere else. After I gave birth, my husband suggested therapy, but I was scared of being judged again, so I decided to bury it and try to forget about it. I just realized now that it was the worst way to go about this, but it's the only way I knew how to honestly. On to the update. After reading all the advice I'd gotten, I decided that I should stop running away and tell her everything. I called her to come over and she did. I first apologized for yelling at her for her suggestion because in her mind, it was an innocent suggestion. I told her that I wasn't angry at her, but how fast she was willing to replace her father because he was in a wheelchair, and that anger was compounded because she brought up her genetic father. I apologize again for acting childish and not like an adult. She asked me why I am so against her genetic father being in the same vicinity as I am, and I just told her everything from our initial friendship to her forced conception. She didn't believe me, like some Redditors predicted, but I can get a copy of the records of the court case and offer them to her if she needs a look. She looked stunned, like she wanted to believe me but couldn't. I apologized for keeping all this from her because I didn't know how to bring it up. She told me she didn't believe me and would confirm with her genetic father, so I told her to take the time she needed to process all this. Later that day, she came again, crying and apologizing for not believing me. I held her and cried and apologized too. It was kind of therapeutic. We had a long chat and I did feel closer to her. When we were done, she said she wanted to take me out to a surprise to help me feel better in a couple of days, which I happily agreed to. I went to see her yesterday in this little restaurant with a patio that had a private pay-for-use area for a maximum of 4 people, due to COVID. As she ran up to me and gave me a hug, she led me to the patio, where her biological father stood. She told me he was here to apologize and start my healing journey. I just wanted to leave, but he grabbed my hand and all those memories I tried to repress just came back out. I started having a panic attack and lost balance, to which he tried to help me keep my balance, which worsened everything. I honestly don't remember how I left, but I ended up in my car just sobbing. I called my elder son to pick me up because I was not fit to drive at that moment. Today, my daughter called me upset that I ruined her surprise, but I was extremely upset with her. I asked her why she did that when she knew everything that happened between me and him, and she tried to use the excuse of my healing journey, but I wasn't having it. She admitted that she wanted me to get used to him because he's going to be walking her down the aisle along with my husband and doing the daddy-daughter dance. I told her that while I loved her and respected her decision to be with him, I am not willing to be anywhere he is. She started complaining about how she wants all her family to be there, and I'm still not forgiving, but I hung up the phone. My husband is aware of everything and stands by me about not going to her wedding, but I don't want this. If my other children were to know, they would stand by me and tell the rest of their extended family, which is going to lead to my daughter getting disowned by the family. There is no need to give me advice on this because I will be seeking professional aid. Anyways, one good thing to come out of this is that I'm finally confident enough to seek therapy. Thank you for listening to my venting, and for commenting on my last post. Happy holidays. I hope you enjoy it with those who you love. Third post. Hello everyone. It has been a while since I last posted on this website. I have a few new updates for everyone that has been asking me. I apologize for not getting to everyone in my direct messages, but I really appreciate everyone sending me support through those tough times. I would like to share some good news before going on about what happened with my daughter. My husband is able to walk again, albeit with a cane, but it is progress. We have been going to physical therapy to help strengthen his legs after his accident. It's good to see him happy and walking again. I've also been to therapy and met this wonderful and sweet therapist. My therapist is so patient and kind. Since my husband and I started together a few weeks ago, she has been extremely helpful. Bless her soul and all those who recommended therapy. I would have missed out on such an experience, so my thanks go out to all of you. Like most of you advised, my therapist also advised me to tell my other children about what went on between my youngest. For reference, I have 3 other children, 30M, 27F, 27M. My eldest boy is the only one that had a slight idea of what happened, but the other 2 were left unaware. I was quite scared and anxious to tell them what happened, especially because my mother and other family members initially reacted negatively. I invited them over around 2 weeks ago for a family dinner and told them everything that happened with the conception of my youngest to what happened recently. They were all silent and stared at me, so I became a little nervous until my daughter started crying. It was so upsetting for her, and my 2 sons were pissed off at my youngest and her father. They asked why I didn't tell them earlier, and I told them I was just scared of how they would have reacted. My husband took them out of the dining room to talk while my eldest daughter just cried together. When my boys and husband came back, they apologized for leaving early and left. My eldest daughter wanted to spend the night with me, but early in the morning, she left with her brothers to do whatever. I didn't hear anything from them until last Wednesday. I was on Facebook when I saw my elder daughter's post calling out my younger daughter for not only ignoring the man who raised her but siding with her mother's pissed and re-traumatize her. My boys made similar posts as well, dragging her name through the mud. I had so many direct messages, but I didn't want anything to do with them, so I deleted the app off my phone. Since I don't like people knowing about my personal life, I asked my kids to take down the post. They said they did, but I haven't re-downloaded the app to find out. My youngest husband came to my house with his mother to apologize. He told me he broke off the engagement because he couldn't be with someone who treated their parents like that. His mother let me know how disgusted she was with my daughter's actions, and someone like that would never be a part of her family. I was honestly stunned by all the support I have received. It's one thing to receive support online, but receiving support in real life was surreal for me. I am a bit disappointed because I wanted my daughter's former fiancé to join the family, as he is a lovely and sweet boy, but he has boundaries in a relationship that my daughter unfortunately crossed. As for my youngest, she is furious with me. She sent me a nasty voicemail saying that I ruined her life. Her friends and fiancé basically cut her off. Needless to say, I felt terribly sorry because I had attempted to avoid this situation at all costs. I went through what she is experiencing, and I know exactly what it feels like. I told my therapist about this, and she told me that the difference is that while I was the victim, my daughter brought it on herself. My therapist is probably right, but I can't stop this feeling of dread. I tried to call my daughter, but once I heard her father on the line, I hung up. He took it upon himself to let me know that my daughter is depressed because of my actions. I feel terrible for treating my daughter like this. My husband says that I should focus on myself, and I'm trying to, but I just can't stop worrying. I don't think that my daughter is safe when she's with her biological father. This is all that's going on in my life right now. For all those asking, thanks for listening to me, and thanks for the advice again. I really appreciate everything.